the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'll apologize right up front. I got hit with something this afternoon, some kind of flu or something. It's hit me pretty hard, so if I do pass out, just work around me. All right, let's start with the approval of items by consensus. Start with the approval of minutes, October 25, 2017, regular session. Do I have a motion? MJ, second by Peggy. All in favor? That's unanimous. Warrants G408, G409, R207, L18, L19, L20, FS07, FS08, FS09, FS10. Do I have a motion? From Peggy, and second by Julie. All those in favor? That is unanimous. All right, payroll warrant 1108, 2017. May I have a motion? Julie, second by MJ. All in favor? That is 5 in favor, 1 abstention, being Peggy. Warrants CB01, CB02. May I have a motion? Peggy, a second by Julie. Thank you. And all in favor? That is 4 in favor with 2 abstentions, being Steve Bjork and MJ Burns. Warrants SPED 06, SPED 07. I have a motion by Jen and second with Tom. All those in favor? That is, again, 4 in favor, 2 abstentions. Same 2. All right. And now we have as is custom, we have a student presentation to begin our meeting. Paul, would you start us off on this?
Sure. I'd like to introduce Principal McMiniman from the North to introduce our students.
Thank you. We are very happy to be here from the North with our student council representatives from the 5th grade. We have 7 representatives, 1 from each homeroom, and these 5th grade leaders were elected by their peers in September, and teachers asked students to nominate these students who demonstrate our core values. Respect everyone, including yourself, act responsibly, practice kindness, and be your best self. Not all of our student council members could attend this evening, but our members are Emily Burton, and everybody else who's here can give a little wave. Emily's not here. Meredith Card, J.T. Kilburn, James Stewart, Kara Warford was unable to attend, Dylan Ward, and Michael Ware. So we would like to share some of the projects and plans that they have developed for this school year, working very closely with Mrs. Farnham, our school counselor. And, you know, we also a lot of the time ask for their feedback, whether it's helping out at this school store or giving opinions or feedback on a school issue that we're working on. And also they'll be making morning announcements soon for Kindness Week coming up in January, and we are very grateful for all of the work they do at the North. So we're starting off. I think I'm going to have Michael sit right here at the microphone. Michael, would you like to go down and talk about Socktober, which just happened?
Hello, I am Michael Ware. This year we collected socks from the upcoming winter season. All homerooms donated the collection bags. Student council members collected the homeroom bags once a week and brought them to Mrs. Farnham's office. The North community collected 586 pairs of socks and exceeded our goal of 500. We will be working with Wear One Wilmington to get these donations to those in need.
Wonderful. And next we have Mary Card, and she's going to talk about an initiative that the Student Council came up with, Leave a Pencil, Take a Pencil. You can put it right up here.
The students had the idea to create Leave a Pencil, Take a Pencil stations. Student council students will sharpen the gel pencils before school. We hope to help each other out in case a friend forgot a pencil or their pencil broke. Hopefully, the jars of pencils will never be empty. There are stations in the 5th grade hallway and in the 4th grade hallway.
Next, we have Dylan Ward. He's going to talk about our current plan and our project about our November canned food drive.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
The food drive is taking place during the whole month of November. The Student Council wants to make sure that the Wilmington Food Pantry has more food available during the holiday season. At current time, we are thankful that the pantry has plenty of pasta, mac and cheese, canned veggies, canned soup, Cheerios, and peanut butter. All items can be brought to our school lobby. It's in here.
And our last two students are going to present together because this is one of their biggest projects throughout the school year. And this is their work at WCTV, working in the Video Explorers program. Come on up, JT and James.
How do you want us to do this? Should we like trade off some?
You can do whatever you like. Why don't you have James read the first two, and then you guys can read the next few. All right? You can sit right here. Yep, we're gonna bring a chair right down. Sit right there. Keep going.
Sorry for the further delay. I know all, you just want to go home, okay. I'm just joking.
For the long
Talking about, do you say people don't enjoy this?
Why don't you start off with your WCTV?
We travel to WCTV every other Thursday to work now on this project. It's your turn.
We have two groups and we work on editing, dialogue, acting, and filming.
Kaylee Bernardo is our supervisor. She helps us learn how to use the computer and camera.
We have a lot of fun and practice skits, for example.
Our video will show what school is like at the North. It will be shown to the 3rd graders when they visit us in June for Step Up Day.
Wonderful. Great job. Excellent.
You got a little theme music with your presentation.
So they really work hard, and they check in, and we have meetings frequently, and they really enjoy their time at WCTV every other week, and they're learning to become a team, which is really great for them, and they really are such positive people in our school, and they're always responsible and check in to see what needs to be done. So if you have any questions for them, feel free to ask, but we're happy to share our projects with you.
Thank you so much, Christine, and everyone. Let me open it up to the committee first. Anybody have any questions, comments? Peggy?
I'd just like to say that this can kind of segue you into, I shouldn't use that word, this can kind of push you into summer, because I know Kaylee does wonderful programs in the summer, camps at WCTV, and there's so much you can do. And then when you get to the middle school, some of you could even talk on the morning announcements at the middle school. So this is a great thing that you're doing. Thank you for coming.
Well, the projects that you're working on are wonderful, and the fact that you are stepping up and becoming student council members says a lot about your potential. You're going to use this experience to really succeed later on. I think that you guys are all wonderful. I am sure that you've got re-election plans for the rest of the night, so you don't necessarily need to stay. We really appreciated having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our student representative report. We give the floor, well, maybe we'll give just a second, let the people kind of clear out. Thank you again, everyone. Joe, by the way, is a man who never stops moving. Just 2 hours ago, I saw him working at Market Basket. He was telling me he's running the place now. So, Joe, take it away.
Thank you. So first, I'd like to start off by telling you about our Mr. and Miss WHS contest that'll be taking place next week on the 21st at 6:30. That contest is an opportunity for students to show off their talents and compete against their friends. One person will be crowned Mr. WHS and one Miss, and all the students really get into it and they really enjoy it. Next week is the high school's Spirit Week. Spirit Week is favored by many students, and this year our theme is giving thanks for ourselves, for what we have, and for the opportunities that we have here in Wilmington. This week, Drama Club is running their Tech Week for their show Rumors, which opens this weekend. Actually, James's sister is in the show, and I've seen a couple snippets of their Tech Week, so I think it's going to be really nice and really worth anyone's time that goes to see it. Local Heroes has gratitude scrolls that are around the school on the second and third and first floors. Those are designed so students around their day and can take a moment out of their day and write a thank you note to a soldier. And those gratitude scrolls are going to be delivered to soldiers through the Local Heroes Club and Mrs. Martell. WHS has held recently a Zumba for Puerto Rico and badminton tournament for Puerto Rico. Badminton got a lot of positive reviews. Everybody was into it. There were teachers, teams, and students. Students are always optimistic at the chance to play a team of teachers in whatever sport. Both had a great showing, and those proceeds are going to go to the relief efforts in Puerto Rico. All this week, the science department has had guest speakers. One, for example, is one of the forensic scientists for the Boston Police Department. They came in this week to explain fields of STEM that they're involved in, whether it be emergency medical services, forensics, to students who are interested in those fields, and students had the opportunity to ask them questions and to really get an understanding for what they do. And that's it.
Very
Thank you.
nice. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Yes, Peggy?
I just want to say, going into the library is a list of who's applying for, running for Mr. and Mrs. And Dina, one of our former student reps, is on the list.
Yes.
So we wish Dina well.
Absolutely. Anything further? Joe, thank you so much for
Thank you.
keeping us updated on everything
And
going on.
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, that brings us to our superintendent report.
Thank you. I did pass out to school committee members some excerpts from the Wilmington Master Plan draft report. We had a meeting I believe it was last Thursday, and the draft report was presented. There still has to be some edits and a little bit of work done on it, but I did just give you some pieces that related to school facilities. It's essentially the same options as we had discussed and you had voted on last year. 2 pre-K to 2 schools, 2 3 to 5 schools, and then the Boutwell and Wildwood schools and sites would be looked at and repurposed in some form or fashion. There was a slight change in the school administration / town hall facility that's part of the plan, and that was to potentially, as of right now in the draft, to include the Veterans Affairs Office in that structure. But again, it's a draft. But I just wanted to give this to you guys based on the meeting that we had last week. There'll be another meeting, I believe, sometime in January. We do not have a date yet, but I'll let you know when that is.
I'm not sure if you can answer this or not, but I assume that's because it made sense to bring Luz Magla into the same building with everyone, and not because there's any problem with that West School building?
Yeah, I don't think there was any problems with the West School building. It was just to bring him closer to Town Hall and so forth, although I don't know if ultimately that'll be where it is, because there was some discussion at our meeting last week that if you moved him out of that building's now kind of vacant, and what do you do with that building? You don't want to have vacant buildings in different places. So I'm not sure. First we heard of it was this meeting, but it's still kind of some moving parts and so forth.
And I certainly don't want to speak for Lou or anybody on this committee, but I know that there had been some benefit of having the autonomy of a separate location for veterans to go almost anonymously. But, anyway.
Thank you.
Another thing that came up at the selectmen's meeting, not at that meeting, was one of the selectmen was questioning, they had mentioned that they might sell the Wildwood land. That was land that they were thinking of selling. And he was not in favor of that at all, so that could be something coming up in the future, so it's good for us to have our eye on that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Peggy. Anything further?
Yep, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to old business, we are going to welcome Dr. Art Betancourt back to our meeting, representing NASDAQ, and a discussion of our superintendent search update. Art, if you want to take Joe's spot. We don't have a name plaque for you yet, but I think at some point we're going to have to get one.
Hello again. Good evening, all.
Good evening, welcome.
Nice to see you all again.
So, I know you have been working with Jen on some of the things that we had discussed in our last meeting needed to take place over the following couple of weeks. And I'd actually, Jen, do you want to give us a kind of an update of where we are and what we have, what work has been done so far?
Sure. So since our last meeting, we were able to finalize the letter and get that posted. So that's on the NASDAQ site right now.
That letter, you're talking about
The superintendent search post, yeah,
Yes.
the call. So we were able to finalize that and get that up. We have met with Human Resources, Ken Storlazzi and Tristan. We looked at all the calendars to try and organize the focus groups. We need to revisit that tonight and just double check and make sure that we don't have any questions about that, or do we want to make changes, additions, so that'll be on the agenda for tonight. We also need to look at the screening committee and talk, I think, at length a little bit about that and what that's going to entail, and then the next steps for that, and the survey. So we have copies of all of that. I emailed all of that as well, but we all have copies in front of us. And so we asked if Art could come and lead us in this discussion. I'm thinking we should probably start with the focus groups, if that makes sense.
Sure. How may I help you in terms of the focus groups?
So we'd come up with a draft letter. It actually, it did go out.
Okay.
There were a couple of comments apparently that some people were under the impression that if you weren't able to make a particular focus group, you were out of the process. So we do want to kind of amend that and make it clear that there are several options available, including written comments and perhaps joining another focus group.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone can, who wants to be included in that process should certainly be able to do that. As you mentioned, we are putting out hard copy of the questionnaire, if you will, that people can respond to and mail into us. They can email us as well, and we can take comments that way. There's also plans, as far as I know, of doing the online survey, which is another way for people to contribute their thoughts, and can do it electronically. What we typically do, and I believe you have a copy of the survey, what we typically do is create a link. We give you the link and you can put it on your website, and then people just click on that link and come automatically to the survey, and we tabulate all of those results and report all of those responses to you. So there are a number of ways that people can contribute.
Now, we've had this survey electronically for a few days now.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any comments about the makeup of the questions, or want to add, take away, modify anything? Yes, Julie.
Is the survey live?
Sir, it isn't live yet. It will be
Okay.
live. What we typically do is put the survey up at the end of the focus group period. That gives people the opportunity to come to us face-to-face, and then those that can't make it then have the opportunity to go to the web, to the active survey. It is not up yet. When you ask us to put it up, or when, it's up to you when you schedule it. We'll put it right up for you. It's a very simple thing. We send the link out and we're ready to go.
And I guess as a follow-up question, and this is really for my fellow committee members, how do we expect to use the data that we get from both the focus groups and the survey? We did both 4 years ago, and I'm just curious to see if we anticipate it being different, or how are we going to use that information?
All right, I don't know what you did 4 years ago. What we do is we accumulate all of the information, all of the input from the focus groups, any emails that we get, telephone interviews that we may do that you would like us to do. We didn't talk about that, but we could also, if you have certain folks that you would like us to contact to do a telephone interview, a personal interview with, we can do that. Those are usually city officials, municipal officials that you might want us to talk to directly, but we can do that as well, make a direct contact. What we do is we take all of that information, including the survey information, and we put that together in a report. And we submit that report to you, the school committee. And then we go through that report with you and discuss how the input that you're receiving looks to you in terms of the kinds of things the community is saying it would like to see, and things that are important to community members, and then look at that information through your eyes. And then after we've discussed all of that information, which is a lot of data, the report will probably be 20 or more pages. Then we sit down with you and say, okay, based upon how this information looks to you, how would you, the school committee, like to describe the qualities, the characteristics, the experiences that you would like to see in your next superintendent? And what you come out with is a candidate profile, which is approximately, it's usually 2 pages of bulleted comments. These are the things that we would like to see in our superintendent. That then is used with the screening committee to help them in terms of focusing on their questions, interview questions, and those things that they're looking for. Because essentially what we think you want is for the screening committee to take the community's expectations and the school committee's expectations into consideration as they interview prospective candidates for the position and decide which candidates they might like to send on to you, the school committee, for final screening. So essentially, the focus group information, the survey information, any interview information we bring to you, we work with you to develop a candidate profile based on that. It's a pretty intensive process. It is a lot of work, and I will sort of caution you ahead of time that that evening when we deal with the information is quite intense. But I think the product that you get is really valuable. The other thing that candidate profile does is it provides a vehicle for you to communicate with the community. If you post it, for example, on your website, the community understands what you as a school committee have determined are the important attributes, if you will, for your new leader. In addition to that, prospective candidates can look at that document and determine how well they fit into the expectations that you folks would have for being a superintendent. Did I answer your question?
It was more of a general question for the group for us to discuss
Okay.
how we would like to use that information.
Did you want to deviate from that process? I mean, is there some other way that you think you'd like us to handle that? Or did you have something else in mind?
No, I was hoping that we as a committee could discuss
Okay.
how we were going to use that information. So thank you for sharing what you would recommend.
Sure. All right, any comments on that? Any questions? Yes, Andy?
In just hearing that, I think it's a very, organized and structured way of coming to an end result of the foundation of which we're going to step from and look at candidates by. I think it's a little different than from what I recall the last time we went through it, but I do like the approach. I think it's a very thorough approach as well. And I'm bracing myself for the work, so.
It is. We know that some firms simply give you the report and say, here's what the community expectations are. We prefer to go the next step and say, okay, that's what the community sees. Now, you as a school committee, how do you view these comments?
Mm-hmm.
What do all these comments mean to you? Because ultimately, you're going to have to make the decision. It's the school committee's decision to make with a lot of input, and we think that's a good way to do it.
I'm hearing no further comments, and I happen to agree with MJ. I think that sounds like a very logical way to analyze the information and utilize it. So, yes, Jen?
Can we look at the focus group schedule and see if there are any questions, concerns, anything we want to add or change? I just want to make sure we can get that out properly and have everyone know the dates so that when we leave tonight, so that people can save the date in their calendar. It's not too far away.
Since it is actually, a version of this has gone out, I would perhaps limit conversation to whether any changes need to be made as opposed to general comments about the schedule as it is. Does that sound fair?
So can I say something?
Please.
So we know that some of the feedback that Ken Storlazzi said he heard was that people, like you said, felt restricted to these times. How do we want to change that? Do we just want to add a line that says, you're welcome to attend any of these focus groups? However, we've done this in a way to make it.
I would, yeah, aligns to the effect that we are trying our very best to accommodate as many constituents as possible. However, there are multiple ways for your input to be heard. For instance, you may submit written comments.
But they can actually, so we've said here, we've kind of outlined.
Right, that's, okay.
But so if Wilmington High School wants to go to the 3:30 on Monday, because that's when they're available, are we saying that's okay? What's the thought here?
The other, I think I mentioned this before, but if you want more focus groups, we're happy to do that and at no additional cost, if that solves some problems for you.
I'm not hearing that anybody needs additional groups, but as far as going to a focus group that is not for your particular perspective, I think we should certainly allow that, but I also think we encourage people, if at all possible, because then it's not necessarily a focus group, it's a unfocused group.
A general session.
General session,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
May I make a suggestion? Well, I know that there are a variety of different stakeholders between the teachers and office staff, administrators and parents. And I do like how that the community one is the last one to go off at 6:30. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's a good catch-all for those who might not be able to attend the other ones on the 20s, earlier in the, on the 27th and earlier on the 28th. That's just my thought. I don't know what, with addressing that concern, if that may in itself be the solution. Sound reasonable?
Any further comments, discussion?
And are we looking for us as school committee members to attend all of these?
Well, there are two, probably more than two schools of thought, if you will. You can, certainly, these are meetings that you may attend, and certainly wouldn't imply that you could be prevented from doing that. What you want to consider is whether your presence in any way changes the conversation. And you can make that judgment for yourself. Some school committee members choose to attend, others would prefer to stay away because they don't want to influence the conversation. They'd rather let the conversation transpire and then have the data and the information brought to them to consider later on. So that's certainly a choice you can make.
Should we make a decision on that? Is that, you suggesting that, or do you think that
I was
we're
just
leave it
asking.
up to the individuals?
I was just asking.
You know, I mean, you can go as a parent to a parent group if you have a child in there. So
Certainly.
technically you can, but I think what he said is, keeping the data raw, unchanged would probably be better, but it's up to each one of us whether or not we want to go, but I kind of like that idea of just not changing the way it goes by our presence being there.
Did you have something?
I was thinking about being present, but not being in the focus groups. Like, should there be someone from the school committee sort of welcoming and like sort of taking turns? I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna be able to be the 2 full days, but it might be nice to have some representation sort of out I would imagine they'll be in here. This is the room we reserved. So having someone out there just say, thank you for coming, I don't know, it just seems like maybe there should be some presence, but I agree, I wouldn't participate, unless I were participating as a parent. I would stay out as a school committee member, for me.
Yeah, I tend to agree that our presence might potentially influence
We also
discussion.
have the online option.
Right.
So if we feel that we have something to say as parents or community members, we can participate online.
Sure, whatever
Okay.
works for you folks is fine.
All right, I would, if somebody wants to make a motion, we certainly can, I can certainly entertain that, but my inclination is to perhaps leave it up to the individual.
I would agree.
Okay. All right. Yes.
I have one more thing. A community member had reached out to me to ask about the voice of students in the focus groups prior to this actually going out a couple of weeks ago. And we had never discussed that as a group, whether or not we wanted to have a space for students. I know Ken Storlazzi had reached out to Linda Peters and about the idea of maybe having a couple of high school students. So I said, we haven't discussed it as a group. Let's talk about it here. What are your thoughts on having a space for students? And if we were to do a 45-minute, 50-minute focus group, we would not get charged extra for that, and we could certainly fit it in within the framework of the 2 days. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that.
Thoughts, discussion?
Just a quick question as to, would we roll it into like the parents piece, or would it would be separate? And if so, where in the, would it be during the school day? Where would it, you know, because we've got sports and work after school, so I was just trying to get the logistics as to how we can offer that to any students who may be interested, and if there is, I think I'd be interested in knowing if there is interest to begin with, in order, if we're gonna go about and arrange this, that there would be interest and participation in doing that. So I guess that's how I feel. I certainly, if there is interest, I'd be happy to include them and try to work out. Go right ahead, Mr. Betancourt.
Well, first of all, they're fun. Having the student focus groups is really a fun time. And you get a lot of really valuable insight, obviously, right from the students. So if you're inclined to do it, we'd be happy to do that for you. What we usually do, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it this way, but what we usually do is limit it to the high school, sometimes bringing in middle school kids. And what we do is work with the building principal, if that's the person we're assigned to talk to help us set it up. And frequently it goes to a body like the student council and perhaps some others who might join as well, just to keep the number reasonable. But we think it's a great idea, and frankly, we love to do it, because it's really neat to sit down with the kids. So if you'd like to do that, we can work that through with whomever you wish us to.
No further, I would offer my opinion. I think, I like this idea quite a bit, and I like the idea of us showing the students that their opinion is important and will be heard.
Absolutely.
So I'm personally in favor of this.
So perhaps we could work through Jennifer to
Do a schedule.
in terms of making the contacts and everything. That make sense?
Yep. Everyone okay?
Is that okay?
Yeah, does anyone feel differently about it? I'm excited about the student perspective, I think it's great.
I think it's a great opportunity for them to get their feet into, something like this.
I think we are in agreement there. All right, what else do we need to review that has already been started, Jim? Anything?
So if we're all set on the focus groups, then we probably should announce, you want to announce publicly what the dates are so that people can mark their calendars?
I think that's a wonderful idea.
It's on TV for all
Yeah.
for all the viewers at home?
Regrettably, I can't
Do you want me to
seem
find,
to
do you want me, I
find
can
that.
announce
You want
it
to read
for
it?
Yeah. The
Thank you.
focus, go ahead, you can do it.
Oh,
You want me to do it? Okay.
All right, so our focus groups consist of Monday, November 27th, from 1:30 to 3:30 our Wilmington High School large group instruction room, which is this room here in the high school. The invited guests groups would be the Butwell Early Childhood Center teachers and support staff, Wildwood Early Childhood Center teachers and support staff, Wilmington Middle School teachers and support staff. From 3:30 to 5, the Wilmington Public Schools administrators and central office staff. From 7 to 8:30, also in this room, are parents, Wilmington parents. On Tuesday, November 28th, from 10:30 a.m. to noon, parents again. From 3 to 5 p.m., Wilmington High School teachers and support staff, Shawshene Elementary School teachers and support staff, Woburn Street Elementary School teachers and support staff, North Intermediate School teachers and support staff, West Intermediate School teachers and support staff. And then finally, on the 28th, from 6:30 to 8, also in this room, will be community/town officials. And we will be inserting somewhere in that a student focus group, somewhere in that.
Can I make one more
Please.
comment? The idea is, people don't have to stay. The idea that sort of this rolling, that the high school, if they're out earlier, they can come by, do their, while the other teachers are getting here. So it doesn't have to be you're here for the full 2 hours, but you come and it can sort of be in and out, is what Carolyn described to me.
There'll actually be a team of people here, probably 3 people here who will be working that process through, yeah, for each of the focus groups. In addition, if I may, also remind you of the offer, if you have people that you would like us to contact to interview personally, we're happy to do that as well. Might be, for example, folks like the chief of police, or others whose time is limited and really, to reach out to them, we'd be happy to do it if you tell us who they are and give us the contact information.
That actually sounds like a great addition, perhaps in the town officials. We can include the police chief, or invite the police chief or a designee, fire chief or a designee, and obviously anybody stop me if they disagree. I think those are certainly important voices. Perhaps I don't know, does DPW? Yeah, because to work with school closings, that would be important.
Absolutely.
And I think Ken Storlazzi was planning on all of those in this invitation.
Town officials, yeah.
Mhm. Could we see who, if we're missing someone from these folk, will there be like an attendance where we could look and say, or no, where we could say,
You could
ooh,
do it any way that's
looks like the
comfortable.
police chief wasn't here, maybe we should reach out? Does that make sense? Or does it make sense to designate it, say right now, these are the people we want to make sure?
I think we can do it in a rolling fashion. I mean, we've got time to get this done, and as people come to mind, if you contact Carolyn and give her the contact information. What we do is if you give us the name and contact information, an email, for example, of an individual, we will shoot an email to them saying they're invited to interview personally with us. Can you give us a time when we can call you? And then we simply call them on the phone and go from there. So we can be flexible, and we'll work with you on that.
I have a question. Has there been any thought, or could we somehow capture the information that shows up on social media? Because we all know there'll be people that won't make it to a focus group in person and may not feel comfortable responding to a survey, but they'll certainly post on Facebook. Is there any value to capturing that information? Because there could be some valuable points made.
It's up to you. It's an interesting idea. I would say that if you have a way of capturing that information and passing it on to us, we could certainly, attempt to put that into the mix as you discuss things. Yeah, I mean, I think input is input regardless of how we get it, and I think what everyone has to say is important, and we'd be happy to try to work with you to do that, sure.
Great.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, hadn't thought of it.
We have to think.
Yeah,
Outside the
times
box
have
these
changed, and
days.
they change every day, in fact, so yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, good.
All right, I think we discussed very briefly at our last meeting, and stop me if I'm skipping ahead, but we were talking about some additional advertising. I don't believe we made a decision on that at our last meeting, did we?
We did not make a decision on that at our last meeting, but
It's all taken care of. We did it, we were able to do it. quickly and get it out. There's no cost to you, and we're good.
Okay.
So you're good to go.
So we're good to go, but what does that mean? Where did we post?
The only place you did not post that I mentioned to you, I did not put out a hard copy in Education Week, because that's very expensive. That can run a couple of $1,000s. But we did post for you on Top School Jobs, which is their website, and AASA. We thought that was important to get that out quickly. And rather than trouble you with it, we just said, we can do this and get it out and get the job done. So we've done that for you.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome. Happy to do it.
All right, anything else looking back, or is it time to look forward?
No, I think the next, if everyone's okay with that, then I think the next piece is to look at the survey, because that would be the next piece that would come after the focus groups, and then the screening committee. So you have a draft of the survey.
Yeah, and we've had this for a little bit. I hope people have had a chance to look through this and offer any comments. I thought it was very well done. Any, yes, MJ?
Can I ask you, only because it's comes up quite often with regards to wanting an educator. I know there are components built within these questions, but I think there's a large drive, a large focus on the next, as we look at candidates, that they come from an education background. And I know I've shared some of my thoughts at the recent conference that, ideally, in a perfect world, I would like somebody who has all these strong leadership and management skills, but is just as passionate about learning and teaching as they are about leading the district. And I think that passion encompasses all of these other elements within the survey. I didn't know if if there is a question or way of formulating it to drive it, besides like the open comment section. I just wanted to throw that out to you as a kind of a loosey thought.
Well, it's not a loose thought at all. I think it's an important thought. Well, let's explore a couple of things if we can.
Okay.
First of all, when you do go through the resumes and the letters of interest that you get from candidates, the screening committee and you ultimately will get, I think, a flavor for that. You can certainly get a flavor for that in your interview questions. And I think that's a valuable piece of information to have on each of the candidates. The other thing I can offer you is that if you want to work with us to draft a question that we could add, might be an open-ended question that asks for comment, we'd be happy to build that in.
Okay.
So that you can, in a way, customize it to get a piece of information that might be important for you.
Okay.
So I don't know how that's best done. Perhaps you could work through Jennifer.
I
and-
think that would probably be the most organized
Right.
way of doing it.
Keep in mind the timing, that this survey will probably go out, thinking first week in December, probably, middle of the first week in December. I don't have the calendar in my head,
December
but that's
8th.
what I'm thinking. So you might want to do that rather quickly, but we'd
Okay.
certainly be happy to add. It's easy to put on a question for you.
Okay, great. If I try to formulate it
Sure.
with Jen, maybe it can be refined?
Sure, I'd be
Okay.
happy to help you.
Appreciate that very
Yeah,
much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the question, something like that, I would assume the committee would like to see and digest. So we may need to convene a short meeting to go over some additional or revisions to survey questions in the first week of December. I think that kind of thing would rise to the threshold of committee members wanting some input.
Okay. Well, let's just can I ask you, our next meeting's slated for the 13th.
Correct.
And he's talking about putting the survey live on the 8th, by the 8th, so I just didn't know.
That's why I said we may need to convene an
Okay.
additional meeting
All right.
What
to
you want,
discuss.
what we want to do, I think Carolyn spoke with you about this, is you want to time your focus groups and your surveys in a way that makes sense. So you want your focus groups, to hold your focus groups, and then shortly thereafter, or maybe even with some overlap, have a survey period of time of perhaps 3 or 4 days. And then we will accumulate all of that information. So thinking, I don't know what the dates are, but thinking along those lines.
Okay. Well, we're certainly not limited to Wednesdays. We can convene when the timing's right to make sure we can get this on a timely basis for you.
I would suggest it not be a lot of questions. I would think a question or maybe two, but I think a well-focused question will, I think, would fit your needs, but we can talk about that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
All right, so over the next couple of weeks, ostensibly between meetings, unless we convene an additional, here are the things that we need to do, and please help me on this. The community needs assessment, school committee determines focus group interviews, so forth. I think we've got that pretty much under control. The candidate profile submitted, that's slated for December. Our meeting is on the 13th. Would that be timely, or is that something we really need to dig into?
Let me check it out and see, and I can be back in touch with the screening committee. The first meeting of the screening committee isn't until January 4th. Yeah, I think if we can, if you'd like us to work with you on the 13th, we can certainly try to do that. That's 7 o'clock in the evening, is that what it is, or
Yes,
thereabouts?
correct.
If that changes, let us know.
Of course.
And this is the intensive meeting that you talked about, where we're fleshing out the profile. Is that also our budget meeting,
Yes.
which is also a priority?
Yes, I mean, we can, from the budget, I can give you an update of where we stand. We kind of did it last year as well. This is where we are right now. We still have our next steps would be, we need to meet with the town manager, and then we come back to you in January with the full budget. So I can pare it down a little bit, just to give you an update of where we are, what we've gone through, and just present that, if that makes sense to the committee. And it's similar to what we did last year, I think.
Yeah, and usually on Fridays, Julie and I get together with Paul to assemble the next agenda, so we can figure if this is going to be certainly too time-consuming, perhaps, again, we talked about this in the beginning of the process, perhaps adding additional meetings, if there are things that on the agenda that can't wait.
So we'll focus on the 13th
the-
unless we
yeah,
hear
for the-
otherwise?
unless
I
you
mean,
have
we
the
could, if
exact-
that changes, that's fine. I mean, we'll target that and then
Okay.
go along with your thinking as you develop it.
All right.
Okay.
All right, and then the review of applications course is done by NASDAQ. NASDAQ has complete, organized applicant files. Okay. So the next thing really that we are involved in that we haven't discussed is the screening committee meeting, the first meeting.
Right.
Okay, and that falls in January 4th ideally, so.
You've got some time, which is the good news, to form your screening committee. And although we've given you, we have a guide sheet that sort of gives you an idea of what a screening committee might look like, I can tell you that from district to district, the screening committees look very different, depending upon what the school committee feels they want to do in terms of the composition. The screening committee is, just to back up a little bit, and not to insult your intelligence, but just so people can follow the conversation. The screening committee is that subcommittee of the school committee that does the preliminary screening of candidates. So say you get 25 candidates, 30 candidates, whatever it is, the screening committee would get access to all of those applications. And then working with us, we would facilitate conversations that would whittle that number down to the number of candidates that the screening committee thought they wanted to interview. Then the screening committee would carry out those interviews. This is all done in executive session. The screening committee would carry out those interviews, and at the end of that interview process, hopefully would be prepared to present to the school committee the names of anywhere from 3 to 5 candidates usually, and you can determine that, that would be given to you in alphabetical order with no preferences as recommended candidates for further consideration by the school committee. When those candidates are announced, the process then becomes public, and your interviews and your review of the candidates then becomes a public process. And we can obviously help you to set all of that up. But that's essentially the way it rolls out. So the screening committee is a very important part of the process. We would suggest that a screening committee can be anywhere from 10 to, we say 11 people, but it typically comes out to be 10 to 15 folks that you would like to see in this preliminary screening, on this preliminary screening committee. And the screening committee represents various constituencies that you have identified that you think you want to bring into the process. So that's where we are. You have pretty much from now until, I would say, the middle of December to put this together. But it's one of those things that you don't want to slip, because it does take some time. I can help you in terms of the composition or how you might want to go about that. Perhaps you can give me some questions that would guide me to where you want to go.
Any questions, comments, discussion? Yes.
I'm not to say I've only done this once before.
Okay.
Well, not to say that that's the end-all, be-all. But I know, in looking at, I know it was a group of 13 before. And I know that, especially with like the public officials, that you've got a variety of different stakeholders. I think the town manager, selectmen, and I think Public Works Director was a part of that public official piece. But the other aspect too is, which I want to make sure we strike a good balance, is teachers at different grade levels, as well as principals at, school administrators at different levels. Because I don't think just one would make it would be a complete representation of the different intricacies of our school and how it, the leadership of our school district plays in each level. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that's
But
right.
as to what that number looks like, I think we.
Yeah, I think perhaps the place to begin is to identify the constituencies that you'd like to include. And then as you look at the constituencies, try to create a balance within the screening committee so that it's not overloaded, for example, with parents or teachers or administrators. But they don't have to be the exact numbers. But you want to have balance. You want it to be a fair representation of the constituencies in your community. As I said, we frequently work with screening committees of 15 or 16 because that tends to give you enough leeway. I'm not advocating that you have a large screening committee because it can make things tough. But nevertheless, if that's what you feel you need to do to make this work, then we want to work with you to have that happen. Having teachers from each grade level, I think, is a good way to go. Sometimes you get teachers who can represent two different grade levels, if you will, middle school and high school, elementary and special ed. So sometimes you get, you can get one person to fill the roles of two constituencies. And then your administrative staff as well, whether it be central office and building. You may want support staff in there as well. So if we can help you with that in terms of how you go about that process and how you might invite people, we're happy to do that. But I think you're right. Having, just defining within an individual constituency how, what levels there may be, I think could be important for you.
Julie?
I think we also just need to keep in mind to be flexible.
Yep.
This is a great place to start, and it's very similar to what we have done in the past. But I think lessons learned from the past, you don't always get what you're hoping to get.
Could be.
Due to availability, scheduling, it can be difficult. So I think we just need to be open and flexible.
You make a very good point, and I think the other thing as you look for people to serve on the screening committee is to make clear to them, and I think I gave you a draft of a letter that you send out, to make clear to folks that are considering volunteering for this. It's a very time-intensive proposition. It's 3 weeks, maybe more, but it's usually about 3 weeks of intense effort. And it's the kind of situation where you may not be working every day for those 3 weeks, but you have to be available because we're scheduling interviews. So we have the candidates' availability and then the screening committee's availability to get together on. So the people that are willing to serve, it's important for them to understand that they really need to be available for the period of time that you're asking them to be. Because ideally, you'd like all of those screening committee members to attend all of the discussions and all of the interviews, because at the end, they're going to vote. And so you want to make sure that they vote, having had all of the information and interaction that has been offered.
Are we planning on having these interviews in the evening? Like setting up maybe 3 or 4 nights, or, having set schedule of interviews? Just so that we can try to aim for that. I'm sitting on it before, I know how rigorous it is.
Yeah.
And a bit of a time commitment, but is that something, I'm not sure how that is developed, or,
We'd be limiting ourselves greatly if we tried to do it during the day. For
Right,
people,
right.
that's when most people work.
well, I
Aside
just
from
didn't
me.
know if there was going to be a set standard kind of for candidates.
Well, let me tell you what we usually do, and what seems to work pretty well. We, through you, bring the screening committee together for that first evening, whatever that date is. It's, December, whatever it is, at 7 o'clock in the evening. And one of the things we do, and actually it's one of the things that takes the most time in that first meeting, is getting a schedule where all 16 people can meet. So we would suggest you set the first date, and you set a tentative second date, which we have on the calendar here. But at that first meeting, we work to get everybody on calendar. And it would depend on the group. I mean, we're working in other districts where they do it in the afternoon, because that's when people are available. Typically, however, it's in the evening, usually after 6, and it goes from 6 to 9. It also, these things can occur on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays as well. We've also worked on Sundays with screening committees, depending upon availability.
So may I ask a question? How do we now start off with how we want our screening committee made up, or a preliminary as to how do we develop that
We
piece?
discuss it right here.
Right now?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we've got to get this, done. I hope, I do feel like a single teacher from the district and a single principal, personally, I think that's not necessarily representative of the entire district. I think we do need to add a couple of each of those.
How many?
I
Because
mean,
we want to try
At
to,
least 2 of each.
okay.
That's my personal opinion. If we, ideally, if we had, and I can think of a couple of parents offhand, I don't know whether they're available or not, certainly it's a different matter, but I can think of certain parents that have children in elementary school, middle school, and high school. That would help us, if we had the right candidate for that, that would help us
That's a good idea.
cut down the membership.
Again, with the public official, as I said, I think the town manager, selectman, and public works director would be, was George Hooper was there last?
See on the screen,
I don't believe so.
We had
No.
2 finance committee members.
to finance committee, yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, Steve?
Yes, Tom?
I guess I'm a little bit confused. So are we having people submit like a request to be on the committee? We're going to get a stack of applicants and then go through that? And are we going to create a type of thing where they check off, I have kids in this school, this school, and this school, and?
So here's the way, and if I'm translating this correctly, please let me know. We're going to send out invitations to stakeholder groups, especially the PACs, and various other stakeholder groups, and we're going to ask them actually to identify the people to serve. So if you're a member of the Northside PAC and you are interested, hopefully you contact the Northside PAC, put your name in the running, and see if you're chosen, that kind of thing. Am I correct on what
I
you?
think that's the least problematic way of doing it, is to have the constituency group decide for itself who they would like you to consider for, with the understanding that you can not choose to go with their judgment, and that's just sort of a safety outlet. But basically, yeah, the way you described it, I think makes sense. And so, for example, if you were looking for 2 teachers, you'd go to whatever overarching teachers group you like and say, we'd like you to recommend 2 teachers to serve on the screening committee. And I think that makes it simpler for you. And it gets you out of the business of conflict and also being perceived that you're loading up the screening committee in a particular way, which you don't do that, I know, but it can be perceived that way.
Certainly.
So, so we're just gonna go to the groups and say, this is what we're looking for. Please submit your entries, your candidates by, December 11th or something like that.
Yes, yeah. And I would actually I'd limit the number so that you don't get
Right.
if you're looking for 2 and they send you 10, that's not what you're trying to do.
We ask them to identify their
Exactly.
representative.
That's what I would suggest is a very straightforward way of doing it, if you wish. And then you also have the ability to appoint on your own the town manager, for example, or the director of the Public Works. You can do that yourselves if you wish. It can be a combination of both.
I would caution us from tapping people on the shoulder, whether they're in the municipal side or not. I think you open it up to all sorts of political headaches. Been there, done that. I would recommend that we advertise that the opportunity is available. We hit upon the various stakeholder groups that we're going to identify, at least put the invitation out there, and then you got to see what you're going to get. We may find that we have to make some phone calls because we're not getting what we think we're going to get.
That's very insightful, yes.
So I
that's
think
true.
we just need to be, again, flexible with it. We put it out there. We might get flooded with people, and that's a wonderful problem to have. Or we might not get a lot of interest. So I think we just need to be aware of that and see what we get. But I would caution us against tapping people on the shoulders.
Okay. I mean, that clearly makes sense.
I agree with Julie. I also want to just make sure that we're staying focused. So at the next meeting, we want to discuss the people who have sent in their stuff at that next meeting.
That's correct, that's what I heard.
Well, the timing is up to you in terms of when you've got some time.
But if our next meeting's the 13th, and then the screening committee first meeting is supposedly January 4th,
Well, the invitation has to go out before the 13th. I
Yeah,
think that's what
the
I've heard.
invitation should go out fairly soon.
and so is that invitation going to be this sample letter?
That's
And
our
who's,
draft.
and are we gonna do that? Are we gonna do that as a subcommittee, what's the next step? I just don't wanna leave here and
I agree.
then find out that we can't actually do anything because we
You
didn't
know-
decide what to do.
And I do agree with you, and I do want to tackle that, but I think let's concentrate first on the composition of the search committee. Let's focus on the composition of the search committee, if anybody's got any, and then we'll move on
And
to the
who's
letter.
going, right, where are these letters going?
Right.
Right. So far, I just wrote down the PACs. I'm assuming, well, and something to the town officials.
Yeah, so PACs will obviously cover the elementary parents, school parents, high school, middle school, high school parents. We'll want to send a letter, I think this suggestion of sending one to the Chamber of Commerce. I think that makes sense to have a business professional as part of the committee. Does anybody disagree?
And we also have the school business partnership. That's another representative body of
That we can
business.
send a letter through
Yeah.
that? Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you write that down?
Yeah.
Okay.
CPAC, is that separate? So I'm assuming that's a separate invitation, so we're sending an invitation to CPAC, we're sending an invitation to the PACs. When that town officials, Chamber of Commerce, school business partnerships, the teachers' union, how are we getting recommendations for principals? Who are we sending that invitation to?
Is there an administrative council?
You're all here.
Who's interested? No.
Is there an administrative council that you could send it to so that they could choose among themselves? Can you do it that way?
Any thoughts? Any thoughts?
There's 8 of them, so we can, if we get something, we can just kind of send it, let them choose amongst the 8 of them, and
Just rock, paper, scissors?
1 or 2, whatever number
Yeah.
you
Superintendent
say.
James.
you know, whatever you say, 1 or 2, and then we'll kind of, Ken can orchestrate that without any problem.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Could I just ask you to clarify something so that we're sort of on the right path here? When you talk about parent packs, you have several, I'm assuming. So you're asking each of those packs to recommend. Is there some central way, or is there some way of routing all of those several recommendations, I'm assuming, to something or someone who can then narrow them down to the 2 that you're looking for? You might want to think about that.
I mean, I wonder if in some ways, like something, we could actually do like a blind, like take the names off and then just look at their letter of interest and kind of pick among that as opposed to just, I mean, that's one way to do it. I think that has to, I mean, they all have to come back here, but that's going to be a large number. So we're going to have to sit and work through some of these letters to see what we think might be the best fit and maybe sort of a checklist like, oh, has an elementary child, a middle child, middle school, oh, also special, oh, this checks a lot of boxes for us. It might be some way like that. Can we use that chart?
Sure.
That's probably one of the bigger issues, if you have a large group, devising a way to narrow it down fairly. Another way to do it is to simply do it at random, where you put elementary all in one place and secondary all in one place, and you choose, you rustle them up and choose a couple. That's another way that it's done. But it's whatever you feel comfortable with.
We did not pick out of a hat last time, as previously reported. We did actually vote in a public session. It was tough.
It is.
So I actually kind of like the idea of picking out of a hat because you get what you get. Everyone has equal shot.
We've actually had school committees request that we be there for the drawing because they wanted an outside observer to be sure it was okay. So it does tend to work, and it does take it. The optics are good in that it's at random.
You can have a live drawing right here,
Yeah, that's typically done.
just like the lottery.
Yeah, very
You
similar.
won.
Very similar.
My concern with that is at the workshop in June, when that was said, there was a very loud groan among the audience, whereas that did not seem to be their preferred.
Yeah. I agreed, and I do think, I'm just trying to think how to streamline this as best possible, but I'm thinking we're gonna have to put this out to the various packs and then find a way to whittle down, maybe taking the names, asking them to remove the names before they send it to them, something like that.
Well, could it all go into human resources and or no?
You can do what you can do what you want, but I think you as a school committee.
No, I mean for them to take the name off and then give it to us, to
Oh,
the school,
oh,
to just blind it for us, so that it's not coming, they take everything off, that way none of us ever see who it is, they take all the names off, and then we actually look at that a week and a half before the meeting and kind of go through who we think might be the best fit. Seems like a fair way, because it's still random, but it's not picking the name out of a hat, I don't know. It's just a thought, I'm not set on either of them, but I didn't mean it goes through I meant it goes through there just so that we don't have access to it.
Sometimes choosing the screening committee can be more difficult, almost as difficult as choosing your superintendent. It can get that interesting, if I could say.
So can I just say what we have so far, just to make sure we have PAC, CPAC, town officials, Chamber of Commerce, School Business Partnership, the union, the admin council, which consists of Sean and Paul. Am I missing anything?
As far as where invitations are going?
Where that letter that I'm
Well,
gonna
I
start to
would think
work on.
perhaps, and in addition to the packs, perhaps it goes out on the Connect 5, and then those people are directed to contact their packs, because there may be people who are not involved in the packs that would be great additions to the screening committee. I think every parent should be notified of this.
Well, every parent is a member of PAC,
But
even if they
maybe
don't go,
not.
but the PAC they would send out their, I mean, we could totally do both, but I see what you're saying. But every parent is already a member of PAC, and they would be getting the PAC emails regardless, but I think that's a good idea. But then do they have to contact the president of PAC, or can they just send in their own? I mean, they can just send it in.
Through the pack.
Does it have to go through the PAC?
Well, I think we just determined that the PAC is going to identify their candidates.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Hey, Steve,
Yes, sir.
what about like a senior from the senior center, since they're involved?
Yep, that's Senior Secretary Marciello. Yep, good point, Tom.
What about the last two suggestions, school committee member and student advisory, student representative?
Well, certainly I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Any comments from the group? So, yes, Julie.
So I will just, again, use from past history. We did discuss having a student several years ago. I think for a lot of reasons, there were some positives, but there was more negatives than positives. So we decided at that time not to involve a student. We are involving students in the focus groups, in the survey, so we are getting their information through that means. I would not vote for having a student on a screening committee, even though my child is probably throwing things at the TV right now.
Any other thoughts, any further discussion? Yes, sir.
The only other thing I would just sort of put on the table is school committee representation, which we suggest is not a bad idea. And we've typically had two, but you might want to work that out too as you feel fit.
Jen?
Well, you know, I'm very interested in serving on the screening committee, so I'll just put my name out there as a very interested member of the school committee.
Is that something, typically, do school committees vote on their representation, or is it just,
It's done various ways. Sometimes the chair appoints, as you would to a subcommittee. Sometimes it's voted upon. Sometimes it just kind of happens. So whatever works for you folks. But it does facilitate the conversation at the screening committee level, I think.
I'd very much like to serve, but the majority of my work takes place in the evening, so I don't think that I'd be a suitable candidate. Is there anybody else have interest in doing it?
Outside of Jen?
Jen?
Mr. Mullis isn't here.
Right,
Should we
so-
be considerate of?
Yeah, so absolutely, he can be part of it. I mean, we can have as many as three. I mean,
Yes, as long as it's not a quorum of the school committee, yeah. It's typically two, but you could certainly, I think you could do three.
all right, so at this point, and perhaps people are concerned about the schedule, certainly as I would be. So perhaps we can, I mean, that's something we can think about and then determine.
Yeah, of course.
That's something we don't have to do before the 13th.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
One quick question. Can we just go over exactly what the search committee is going to be doing? Because I guess I got confused when he was saying interviewing candidates. I thought they were just going through the resumes, narrowing it down, and then the last three finalists would be who we get. Then we would do the public interview.
All right, I should certainly defer to you, but do you mind if I try and do it, just to make sure
Absolutely.
that I understand? So the screening committee, as opposed to search committee, they're not going out and searching. Screening committee is taking the resumes that have come into NESDEC. They're going to cut that down to however many they think are valid candidates worth interviewing. They interview them in executive session. Then, through that interview process, they cut it down to between 3 and 5 finalists, depending on what our directive is. Is that if I
That's exactly right,
paraphrase?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
it just, like I said, I wasn't sure exactly what it was.
All right. So for the moment, we will, I guess we'll accept Jen as one of our representatives, and we will table a second until our next meeting. All right, please, if you think about it, and can you supply what is a typical schedule? I mean, are they generally Friday nights, Saturday nights, Thursday nights, or are they generally earlier in the week?
Screening
Monday,
committee?
Tuesday?
You're
Right.
talking about screening?
Right.
Well, let me give you sort of I could do that now if you wish.
That's great.
Would that be helpful? Usually what we do is we have 2 orientation meetings of the screening committee. The first is to go over the guidelines, the open meeting law, conflict of interest, those sorts of things. All of that is done in public session, as well as developing the meeting date availability going forward. We then go into executive session, at which point we actually introduce the applications. And people have the opportunity to become familiar with the application process. Now, what we're going to, and we can talk more about this, we're going to an online file of applications so that you don't need hard copy. We can produce hard copy if that's the preference, but a lot of this now is done by going to our site, to a secure place on our site, and the applications are there. That's the first meeting. Then we reconvene the second meeting, probably 2-3 days later, having given the screening committee members an opportunity to review all of the applications. At the second meeting of the screening committee, we then decide those applicants that they would like to invite for an interview. Again, that's done in executive session. Then we go about the task of setting up the interviews according to the schedule that the screening committee has developed. And then the screening committee will interview probably for about a week and a half. It usually takes, it may not take all of those times, but the span of time is about a week and a half. Then at the last meeting of the screening committee, we come back and we facilitate a conversation to help the screening committee determine which 3 to 5 candidates they would like to recommend for further consideration by the school committee.
So you weren't able to answer what typically are the days of the week. And I
Oh,
actually, but in hindsight, I can understand that. I mean, it really depends on the calendar of the people's
does.
availability.
It does.
So do you ever overstock, knowing that some people, once they start to establish the calendar, some people are going to have to drop out? Do you ever do that, or?
Well, we have had, the answer to your question is yes. We have had alternates that have been part of the process. They can either be brought in as non-voting members, or they can be available on the outside if we need someone to come in to fill a spot. Yeah, we have done that. So that's something you might want to consider as well. Yeah. I can tell you that the first 2 meetings usually occur on a Thursday and a Monday or a Tuesday. You meet on the Thursday, you give folks the applications, the orientation. They have the weekend then to review the applications, and we meet early that next week in executive session. From there on in, it depends on the screening committee members' availability.
Okay. All right, we may have actually beaten this one to death. Is there anybody else? Anything to, yes, Jen?
Sorry, can I just review? So we're going to move ahead, and we're going to work on this letter, this sample letter here that we've been provided, and if anyone wants to pinpoint anything before we leave.
Here's where I think maybe we should do this, and forgive me for interjecting, but we developed a letter, maybe a couple of you, I'd be happy to join in. We send it to the membership. If anybody has any problems with it going out, at that point, we don't do any deliberation over email, of course. We will schedule an emergency meeting to discuss. Does that, yes?
Yeah, and you said the very important words, being mindful of the open meeting law.
Does that, I mean, that fits, right? If it's
Well, I'm not an
informational
attorney,
only?
but what you have to be careful of is two-way communications. That's that deliberation, obviously.
Yep.
That can get you into difficulty. So just be careful of that.
So finalize the letter, send it to the committee. If there's any reason they want to talk about it, email you and we schedule a meeting.
Get a grasp of what we're saying here? Because I'm wondering if you can reach out to Andy and ask him if that would skirt the line of open meeting? Okay. All right. Peggy, yes?
Speaking of reach out to Andy, I didn't know if you were able to do that.
No, as a matter of fact, that's absolutely on the priority list, and I apologize that it
Because
hasn't got done yet.
I would take part in some of these.
Yeah, I figured you would, so
Thank you.
that'll be something that gets done tomorrow for sure.
Great, thank you.
All right,
Just to,
yes,
just to confirm,
of course.
does anybody want to work on this letter? I'm going to use this sample letter. Does anybody want to work on it with me?
Okay, you want to be careful of that, too, because
No.
that, again, the open meeting law, I can't tell you necessarily how it would work, but you want to be careful.
But if that's done within a subcommittee of two or three people, that would be okay, right?
I'm not sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of
But
curiosity.
but it's a subcommittee. So you might want to ask. I mean, if you're going to, I assume you mentioned you're going to talk to council?
Yep.
That might be something you'd want to ask him, just to be sure.
Okay.
Because you don't, simple things like that, can get you into all kinds of difficulties. So I would just caution you, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so you'll talk to, okay. I'm gonna work on this letter.
You can talk to me all you want.
I'm gonna work on
That's not a
this,
violation.
and then that way we can,
So if one person works on it, you're saying we're not going to skirt the line at all?
Well,
There's-
no, but I think the interaction outside of a meeting, particularly if you're calling it a subcommittee, could be a problem, because a subcommittee falls under the open meeting law. So I don't know, but I just suggest that you might want to check that out.
Okay.
Okay. I don't say it's wrong, but just to be sure.
All right. All right.
okay. Got it.
Anything further? All right. Art, is there anything that we have skipped over, anything we need to really address before?
You've been great, you've been very thorough. And I want to thank Jennifer for being so diligent in her work. She's great. She has a question, she calls and she asks or texts it, and she's
Saturday, Sunday.
she's been very efficient. And the other thing she does is she's very sensitive to understanding the whole committee's role in the process. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Jen. All right, I believe unless there's any further questions for Art?
You're throwing me out?
Well, no, but
Stay, participate.
by all means, if you want to stick around.
No, thanks. If anything comes up in the meantime, please feel free to call. We're happy to help you.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you very much. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not quite midnight, so we'll move on. To new business. So we'll start with the approval of, or second reading of the approval of deletion of vendor relation policy. This is as per policy, this is our second reading. This is when we'll actually vote to take action. Is there any discussion regarding this? All right, I would certainly entertain a motion. The recommended motion is to move to approve the second reading deletion of policy DJG, vendor relations. Certainly, if someone was of mind to not approve, that certainly would be entertained as well. A motion? MJ? A second? Tom? All those in favor? That is unanimous. All right, that moves us on to our district improvement plan. Paul?
Thank you. First, I want to thank Assistant Superintendent Gallagher and all the principals and their staff up there for all the work they've done, putting together the district improvement plan and the school improvement plans. We're going to present them tonight as a draft, so we don't expect you to approve them tonight, but it's a draft, and Sean will present our Assistant Superintendent Gallagher will present the district improvement plan, then the schools will come up and present their school improvement plan. So, and again, thank you all for all the efforts and everything.
And thank you for sticking around for a late night. We certainly do appreciate it. I'm sorry, Peggy.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. As we're going through this, are we going to stop at each section? Like, he'd give us the first six slides or so that were about the district, and then are we going to stop and talk about them and then go on to the next, or are we going through the whole thing?
No, we can stop. Yeah.
Each section or?
Yeah,
or each
I just
plan?
wonder if everyone else doesn't mind. I have comments on some of the different things, so. Uh-oh, what happened?
Somebody was attacking you, Peggy.
Thank you all. So first of all, I just wanted to take a moment and just kind of reflect on a lot of the challenges the Wilmington school community the past couple of years. Before we jump into all the work that everyone's done behind us, as we all know, we've had a lot of changeover at central office staff. And a lot of the people that set the vision for the district and developed that strategic plan are no longer here. And really that vision is set by previous superintendent. So last year, I think collectively the leadership team, along with Superintendent Benton at the time, we said, let's take a 52-page strategic plan and let's really kind of condense it and take a lot of these initiatives and to get something accomplished, to get some focus. And so I'm just really proud of that work that's happened. So, and remember, the strategic plan is going to end in 2018, you know, this June. So that's a really important aspect of this, along with the, as we just talked about for a little bit, a new superintendent coming in that's really going to bring people together, set a new vision for the district, and it's going to be really an important aspect to, you know, a quality superintendent's going to do that once they get to know the district for a new school improvement plan. So with all of that kind of coming down, I think on all of us the last year and a half, we also have this new next generation MCAS testing that came out that the whole state's wrapping their heads around. You saw the Boston Herald, the Boston Globe. You have schools, for example, the superintendent in Andover, one of her elementary schools for years was over 80%, 90% advanced and proficient. And then after this test, that 80 to 90% went down to 18%. So a lot of the assistant superintendents like myself and superintendents are kind of taking a look at this new assessment and kind of wrapping our heads around that. And so I think that's also a key factor and kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight. The other piece that I think is really important is for the principals and myself and other central office leadership, we really kind of wanted to give more of a detailed PowerPoint overview, really kind of pertaining to last year's goals and some of the goals that we've accomplished, because I think it's essential and very, very important, especially now, that the principals work with their school advisory councils. Kind of taking a look at the MCAS data, kind of revamping, looking at our goals and the school improvement goals. And I think it's really important for them to develop a detailed list with that council, especially now as we're moving into the second half of the year, as this strategic plan is kind of going to be running out and we're going through the new superintendent process. Remember that strategic plan kind of trickles down into the district improvement plan and then also your school improvement plans. But I just want to echo the same from Superintendent Ruggiero on the work and the dedication of the people behind us. Obviously, our faculty and support staff have been tremendous the last 2 years, but I just really want to recognize our principals and central office people for really maintaining the great quality education in Wilmington. Through all of this adversity, it'd be very easy for them to say, well, we're kind of in flux and we're not going to, you know, there's not much we can do. But when they present these plans and they present some of the things that they accomplished and where we're moving forward, I'm just really proud to be part of this organization, and these are the best people behind you. So Wilmington is extremely fortunate. So that's my take before we jump into the 2-hour presentation. But I just want to thank them personally for all their hard work. So great job. I appreciate it. All right. So with all of that being said, remember we're going off of a strategic plan that was very comprehensive. There's not many that are 52 pages long, I don't think, in the Commonwealth, but, so we've kind of tried to, I think, summarize, focus, and report out on the great things that have been accomplished thus far, and then kind of how we're going to be moving forward. So, my district improvement plan overall, or not mine, the district improvement plan overall, I added more detail to this one in the PowerPoint than we did last year. If you looked at last year's PowerPoint, it was really just kind of an overview, but I just really wanted to highlight and bullet point, different aspects. I'm not going to read all those bullet points to you, but you can see that we're continuing doing a lot of the curriculum work, the data work, around throughout pre-K to 12. It's been a lot of hard work with that. We're monitoring, we always monitor student learning. And throughout this district improvement plan, you're going to hear the DCAP. And what are you doing with the DCAP? All of the principals and district leaders throughout the district have been sharing this and utilizing our DCAP with faculty and support staff. So this is essential for closing that achievement gap. It's really giving the mainstream teachers the tools to make adjustments to the accommodation, adjustments to the curriculum to, within the classroom to develop accommodations. So with that being said, this is a great document with Alice and Christine Murray in our special ed department chairs. The last page is probably the most important piece, where we're surveying the faculty. When they read through the district accommodation plans, what are 3 accommodations when you look at this that you're feeling pretty comfortable that you're pretty much doing on a daily basis? What are 2 accommodations that you would like to do but need a little bit more support? And give us some information on 1 accommodation that you really need a lot of support on. And we're compiling this information, which will give us, from the central office to the principals, kind of pinpoint professional development on what we need to do. So you'll hear the DCAP being referred, I think, throughout the night, and I think that's a really important document. Remember, our DCAP document is about 40 pages long. That will be next year's goal, to reduce that a little bit to make it more of a working document for our teachers. But this is a nice little summary and bullet point as we go through that. Implementing the IST teams and developing a process, pre-K to 12 is essential. Everyone utilizing the same process, the same aspects. And I know Alice has been doing great with that in working with her special education chairs. Utilizing technology tools. So part of Envisions Math this year, and Lisa Murphy's back there, I think, I see her there, our new elementary STEM lead teacher, did a great professional development. Built within that program are the online tool assessments, but also part of that are accommodations for kids. And we're starting to incorporate and utilize a lot of that online, the online tools in a lot of the programs that we have. Special education programming throughout the district. Ms. Brown-LeGrand is doing a great job, really looking at all the different programs and seeing where there might be some gaps and where we can make some improvements. And then obviously we were talking about the curriculum mapping, but really tying in those higher order thinking and real world applications. And I've been saying this for about a year and a half, those 21st century learning skills, right, that are essential. Are we allowing our students to have leadership in the classroom, collaboration, being innovative, creative, taking a look at our assessments, and really enriching them to move those to a higher order thinking aspect. Not recreating the wheel, just kind of enhancing those. So I think up top is, and when we get to the MCAS presentation, you'll see exceeding expectations and meeting expectations is now the lingo where we want to move people. So that's closing the achievement gap. For the district, there's going to be a lot, I think, more details when the principals come up and kind of tell you specifically what they've been working on in their schools. But overall, those are some of the district-wide goals that we've been doing. Any questions, or we're going to keep going on? Yes?
Thank you. So you said earlier that this is a draft. This is a working draft. We're not going to vote on this evening?
Correct. Well, I
Correct.
think when you look at the district improvement plan,
Yeah.
so this is really like a summary and as we're moving
Okay.
forward, yes.
Because I have to say, I've been sitting through these, this is my 5th time sitting through these
Yes.
now. Closing the gap is always one of the goals. And
Exactly.
it is the one that I personally struggle with
Yeah.
the most. Because I know it's a state term, but I really don't like the word gap.
Sure.
I think we can change it to say difference
Yeah.
and
Or
accept
enhanced student
that,
achievement.
that this quote right here, all kids are different. Unless somebody's got a magic wand
Right.
that they're gonna wave over Wilmington and get all of our kids up to the same level, not gonna happen.
Well, and I don't think it's, I think there's two things. Number one, we're still using this language from
Yeah.
the old district improvement.
Yeah, and I
You know what
I
mean?
recognize that.
So
I fully
I agree
recognize that.
100%.
So is there some
Of course
other
there is.
way we can talk about that?
Enhanced student achievement. That's
You
it
know,
right there.
Because this quote
For all
right here
students.
talks about it. All the kids are different.
Exactly.
And we're not going to close the gap, let's
Right.
be honest.
And I think for every school district, I think we are gonna close the achievement gap. But what I'm saying is, I think everyone in every district has challenges of enhancing student achievement. So the goal for, I think, all of us is to start moving to that college and career readiness. That should be our goal. Like when you look at a student who's in pre-K right now, all the way to their senior year, collectively, what are the skills they're going to need to be successful in the workforce and/or college? And I think when you're looking at achievement, I think it's gonna start to shift to that, being college and career readiness.
And I would also just, not to interrupt, but just to say that achievement looks different from every single kid in our
Exactly. I
district.
agree 100%.
What achievement is for that kid. So
agree. We'll talk
I've-
about
I've-
that when we get to the
I've
MCAS
struggled with
presentation.
that a lot, and
Yeah.
I hate that term, closing the gap. I'll just be honest, hate it.
I'm right with you, 100%.
There's people laughing.
So if I have permission to change these, I'll do it tonight. Yes.
Yep. The other aspect, though, too, I know we put a lot of our goals based on the MCAS tool, which, you know, I think we're fortunate, our kids get assessed throughout the year in multiple different ways. And I think we really need to look at that data with how our kids are learning and where those who may be lagging may be making their gains. I'm going to say it again after I've been saying it for 6 years. I think the tool that the state is currently using, even in its revamped stage, is not an accurate indicator and only gets the middle ground. So for the the Department of Education to say we need to teach to our differentiated learners and capture them, it gives us a one-note tool, kind of speaks volume, and I do hope, and I know that our staff doesn't necessarily look at just this as the sole criteria as to our kids' learning. So,
I agree 100%, 100%.
Thank you.
One of the things you took away some of my points here.
I was hoping.
But I have more. I really, closing the achievement gap, hearing it over and over, it makes us feel like we're failures, because did we ever get past the 2% achievement? Everybody had 2% for like 3 years, 4 years in a row, and we never found out whether we made it or not. But for this, I would rather see 2 major, instead of all of these bullet points. I feel as a school committee, what happens to us is, yeah, this looks really nice and everything, but we're talking about data institute results, revitalized building-based data teams. What do you mean by that? How are you going to revitalize them? And in the end of the year, are we going to know whether they were successful? When down the bottom, continue to update, revise curriculum maps. We have had, my curriculum maps terms is how you feel about the achievement gap. I can't stand hearing about curriculum maps. I can't stand the amount of time that our teachers supposedly in CIT days work on them. I think it's I shouldn't say a complete waste of time, because we all have to work on it, But I just think it's not being accurate enough. You're not getting down to how are you going to do it? And how are you going to monitor, this one, oh my goodness. Continue to monitor classroom, school, and district student achievement data throughout the year. How are you monitoring it? Who is monitoring it? And
Well-
does this mean, because this has been on there for a number of years, that we've never even been able to do it at all? So I think it
No, it just-
sometimes can
it-
give negative information,
Yeah,
that we don't mean it that way.
Right, well, I think you're constantly analyzing student data. You look at DNF lists, you're looking at progress reports, you're looking at report cards. Teachers are, at the elementary level, writing standards, reporting out on the standards, the reading standards. It's an ongoing, I think, aspect of education.
But which ones are successful and which aren't? That's all I'm saying. I
Which-
think we need to get more specific about ourselves, and not do, have to worry about 8 items. I don't think when you go over this whole thing.
Well, I think when you're looking at the district, this is kind of what's going on throughout the district. When the principals after me come in and start talking about the specific
I like that
programs that are
much
going.
better than I
I know
liked
you.
this introduction.
I know.
I'm sorry. I think
I just
they got
think,
it. But no, I
you
agree.
need to look, you need to look at that. It should be part of every day.
Well, we're in a no-win situation right now, because this is a conglomeration of what other people's vision was. And
Right,
you haven't
right.
had a chance to, we haven't had a chance to really
Right.
cement what is our vision
Sure.
at this point.
I agree, and I think, so for us, we're reporting out a lot of the work that's kind of going on in the district here. But I agree 100%, when you gotta revamp and start a whole new strategic plan process, and this is towards the end of this existing. But I think that the data analysis is essential. For example, I'll give you, if you're looking at social and emotional behavior, and you're looking at economically diverse students, looking at a warning, every 5 weeks when the warning cards come out, right? That's important data. When you're looking at a DNF list, all the freshmen and sophomores, we focus on DNF lists after that first quarter. So if you have if you have 20 freshman students that have more than one D or an F, that's a red flag. That gives a focus point on what's going on. And it may not be a learning disability or socially economic, but there's something going on with that student. It could be a great student that's dealing with some family issues. But that when you monitor the data, if it's social emotional learning data, if you're monitoring classroom data, a DNF list is a really important aspect too, because then you can go back to your teachers and have conversations about that. What's going on in the class, they need more support, so.
But who is the we who's going back to the teachers? I think that's all thing I'm saying.
Well, I think your administration, your CTLs, assistant principals. So that's when we say to revitalize that building-based data team, that's what we're talking about. To work with, collaboratively work with the teachers, have some of this data and kind of sift through it to help kids. Because that's, if you wait, if we're just talking a progress report and you wait to the end of the quarter, you may have already lost 20 students. And now they're all struggling to come back. So there's a lot of work that we do as a leadership team, and also in different cabinets, that we talk about the data. We talk about how we're gonna look at data that we feel is gonna have an impact in the classroom. And not all of this, but every school is a little bit different. And when the principals come up, they're gonna give you some of the specific things that they're doing. But I think for us, it's as we move forward, so. These bullets were like the first 37 pages of the strategic plan, so that's not bad. It's only 8 bullets, so.
Good job.
Thank you. All right. Are we ready for 2? All right. So when you look at goal 2, it's really, this to me is and we narrowed this one down too. So this is probably the most important aspect of achievement, because I think you really need to build within your capacity, your teacher leader capacity, to build that up. And we're doing a lot of different things. As you can see, we have a lot of best practices going on. So the last professional development day at the high school, we had staff presenting to staff on DCAP, on accommodations, which was great to see. We had Lisa Murphy that elevated to the STEM leader, who was a teacher for many years and now has stepped up to the district leadership team. So I think when you can give teachers opportunities to show leadership, to have an opportunity to make change, I think you really embrace that, because it's that train the trainer model. So, and I think that, you know, that's what this whole goal number 2 is really talking about. Identifying the best practices, having teachers share best practice. If you look at our teacher evaluation this year, working with the great leadership team behind me, we all developed similar goals. So we have 4 goals, you know. Enhance student achievement. We're not closing achievement gap anymore. Enhance student achievement for all students. The second, for the grade 6 to 12, is the curriculum mapping. I know Peggy likes that. And then Reader's Workshop for the elementary level. That's the focus. Obviously, math is built into those goals. And then you have all of us moving in the same direction with social emotional learning goal. You have the MARC program for grade 6 to 12. We have PBIS that's being implemented at the lower grades. And then the last piece is probably the most important piece, is celebrating you know, student success and family success and teacher success, which you had tonight with those students here. And those are all my bullet points. So that was a quicker summary. Any questions? Yes.
This is a quick one.
All right.
Can you explain to us what Teach Point Evaluation
Yes.
Program is?
Yes, so we piloted it last year with our CTL. So basically, Peggy, what it does, it allows all of us, the whole district, to have the same evaluation platform. Okay, it's a computerized platform. We had a lot of inconsistencies with the teacher evaluation, and so throughout the district. So, and not saying that, you know, we were in compliance and everyone did all the observations and the goals, but you know, from one school to the next, it was a little bit different. And so, when I came in here last year, just talking to some of the union, you know, representation, that was an issue of, you know, if I'm observing one way at the high school and you're observing different way at the middle school, it kind of creates inconsistency. So we looked at this program last year. We developed like some model walkthroughs, and now everybody is using it. Not everybody. We had the CTLs try it out last year. We got the teacher feedback. They liked it. We wrote up a memorandum of agreement with the teachers and the administration. And now we're piloting it with our veteran teachers, our tenured teachers. And the feedback that we're getting is pretty positive, because it makes the teacher evaluation a lot easier for teachers and administrators, but yet it kind of has us all moving in the same direction, all kind of looking at the same
So
stuff.
you've changed the evaluation tool? Is that?
We're just,
I don't understand what it is.
the tool is there. The way we're documenting it is it's consistent. So nothing has changed with the
Do
tool.
they have the same person evaluating them who they had last year, or have you
Yes.
changed
For-
that?
No. So we're working with all the tenured teachers right now, with the union, in agreement with the union. And then the goal is, once people get comfortable with it, then we reevaluate, and then next year, we would go with probably the non-professional staff after we get some teacher input. But that's been I think, a pretty good success for all of us.
I think this is one thing of being on the school committee that we're losing, I don't know exactly how to put it. Before you did that next year, if you do that again, I would appreciate, I think, if you made a presentation to the school committee about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because that's a big change.
Yeah.
And that you did it through the union is
Yeah,
good.
it's great.
That's great.
Well,
But it's something we don't know about, but then
Right.
when you hear it, I feel like I've
good
listened,
thing or
you
a
know,
bad thing?
I think it's a good thing.
All right, good.
But it's a bad thing that we don't know about it.
No, well, so we're still in a pilot.
I want to be,
We're
I want to
still-
be
right.
proactive and happy for
Sure.
people and stuff.
But we're still in the pilot,
Right.
working with the union. So at the end of this year, right now, I think things are gonna move forward and people are very happy. But at the end, let's say in May, the teachers say, you know, we don't wanna do this anymore. Then we tried it out, you know? So I think next year, if they're accepted and we're really gonna move forward with this, then there would be a presentation to the school committee. But
Okay.
piloting right now is,
We'll hold you to that.
yeah.
It's really, it's a better way, or we're trying to see if it's a better way of collecting data. As teachers go through the evaluation process, they upload goals, and I think in the past, the goals would be here, and then it'd be difficult. They'd have hard copies of information to support their goals, and some would be able to upload it in one form or fashion, into Aspen and so forth. And I think we had heard some rumblings that it wasn't the most easy process to go through. So Sean had looked at Teach Point, which he used in his district. My wife, where she works, they use Teach Point. And I think it's an easier way of collecting data around your goals. It's a better way, or an easier way of principals giving feedback to teachers, teachers responding to that feedback, and so forth. So it's really just another tool to help in the evaluation process. It's not changing the evaluation process. It's kind of hopefully streamlining the process so it makes it easier for teachers to work with it, and administrators to work with it all. So that's kind of what we were
I
looking.
think it's great because bottom line, I think what we're trying to do is enhance that word. We're trying to make things better and easier for everybody and actually get information from that. And I just happened to pick that out because I had never heard of that. So I'm really glad we're doing it. And I'm just saying, it just brought up that other aspect of it that I would like to know that these things are going on, because we don't always hear the good things. So I think that sounds
All right.
excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're surprised, huh?
I'm only on 2, there's 5 more.
That's true.
Are we ready?
I'll
3.
give you one on this one. Oh,
All
no,
right.
sorry, I won't.
All right, here we go. Safe, supportive schools. I think many people are familiar with a lot of the work that's going on with this goal here, especially with inclusive practices. So this really just updating, a lot of this work is still continuing. The reaching out to families and students, with different programming. This also ties into our program coordinated review, which we'll talk about presentations. I talked to Superintendent Ruggiero, and I will probably do a nice presentation with our team regarding what the program coordinated review is gonna look like. It's a intensive audit of our special education programs, our ELO programs, and civil rights. And that will be, there'll be a team here from the DSE in March. So I think sometime in January, February, I can give an overview of that. But a lot of this ties in. Remember the EverFi program last year also has cyberbullying and different aspects of that. And then the Signs of Suicide, the new middle school program too. And then Doreen Crow and behavioral health and that screening tool and the YRBS, she does amazing work with all of that too. So that's kind of just bullet points and kind of what we're gonna do to continue to move forward with that and those goals. And there'll be other, as I said, the principals are following up with me, and they have more specific initiatives that are going on in their schools. All right.
You got a freebie, you better go for it.
All right, we're
Run,
gonna keep
Sean,
going,
run.
we're gonna keep going. All right, enhancing communication and collaboration. A lot of the same pieces that we have into place. And I think that this is what makes Wilmington great, is the families, the parent groups, the organizations that really rally behind the schools. And I think the more that we can reach out to a lot of these organizations in the town of Wilmington, the better. And, I see Jonathan Miranda out in the audience there, who is great at the Mass Roadshow. He did a lot of behind-the-scenes work with that. And I think that was a great community event for the town of Wilmington, especially when we needed, I think it was a great pick-me-up. So that was awesome. And I know we're looking at enhancing the senior internship and work with the school business partnership. So these will continue to be a priority, and reaching out and collaborating with a lot of the families and organizations and businesses in the town of Wilmington. All right.
This is just a question.
Up.
On one of them, you say, continue to collaborate with the town manager and selectmen to prioritize educating the children of Wilmington.
Correct.
The way that's worded, to prioritize educating the children of Wilmington, do we mean that we want them to know that it's more of a priority, or is something more priority for them?
Well, I'm thinking, we're prioritizing, I think when we work with the town manager and the selectmen, and Paul can probably talk to you more about this, I think, I kind of threw that in there because it was my first go-around with the whole town budget. And when I sat in the meetings and the finance meetings through the town, the education was the main priority of this town. And that was something, obviously for the school committee, that's our ultimate goal, but hearing it from the selectmen and the town manager of this is a priority, I kind of threw that in there.
That's what I thought you meant, but I
Yeah.
wanted to just make sure that the message gets out there if this
Yes.
goes out there.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
That we appreciate them making it a priority.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Jen?
Sure, I just have a question. So that one that Peggy just pointed out, I'm not seeing that on the more detailed version. Am I missing it?
It might be under the achieving operational effectiveness. Are you looking at the,
So I'm in enhancing communication and collaboration. So it's in a different goal?
it might have been.
That's okay. I'm just,
Yeah, I can reflect on the grid that if it was missed. But I'll reflect back on that and I can tweak that.
that's okay. While I was looking at that, I noticed that at the bottom of this goal in the full handout, it says
Yeah.
expand and enhance student learning opportunities by developing stronger connections to area colleges and universities.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering if that's a part of this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It might not have made the bullet list.
Okay.
All right.
I guess
But
I'm trying to figure out what's making the bullets and what's not making the bullets.
Yeah. All right. Are we good on this one? And I can update that too.
Okay.
All right?
So next one's a bad one.
Achieving operational effectiveness. I'll defer to our superintendent on that one. So this is really taking from the district improvement plan last year. And I highlighted, once again, the program coordinator review, because they'll, as part of that review, they'll look for equity among, all schools and programming, which will be a big aspect, and a lot of your extracurricular activities too. And I just, right here, as we move forward, kind of took very similar of the bullets that we did last year, and I'm not sure if you have questions on this one, or if Paul can bail me out on any of the finance and operation effectiveness.
I don't want to take up all the time. Does anyone have something first?
Peggy, it looks like the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. When I look at this part, I'm just thinking, I want to say this the right way. I don't want to insult anybody. Sometimes I think that we in Wilmington expect a lot from our teaching staff, and they have always come forward and they've given it to us. And when I hear from different staff members that they do not have, because of different situations over the last year, which you wouldn't be involved in anyway, that they don't have the books that they need for the classroom, that the computers are broken, Those are the things I feel that we're responsible for as a school committee. And I feel that even right now, there are some things on this later on that'll come up that, from what I've been told, the teachers aren't getting them. You know, you and I had talked to you about a couple of projects about some reading books, the reading series, reading text and things. And I think that we have good ideas to start, but there's some ways that we might need to use our money in a different way than we have. For instance, I think that, I know you were saying that the data is very important, and I'm wondering if at this point, as we go into the budget season, we don't think about the fact of that data, when we had the presentation, which was excellent, but it's basically, it was the principals, it was the administrators, not the individual teachers who really have been working with our data. And by now, perhaps we already know, I would rather see that people who, the administrators, et cetera, can do the data themselves, and that salary could go to the books. Because if we need like $45,000 for books, that's what we need for books. One of the things I feel badly about is when we first went into the whole computer thing, I don't know if anyone remembers all of this or not, because we keep changing as a school committee, but when we went into the computers, the idea was that we were going to do away with textbooks, and some of us were horrified, but we were going to have it online. So the textbook would be online. The kids wouldn't have to carry on, they'd have them on their computers, et cetera. How is that working out for us? I mean, as I told you, I get the people having problems come and tell me things. But it's just like, I think sometimes we need to go back, and if there's enough people telling us we can't use it online, there is no textbook online, or that it's been used. And the other part is, we never accept, I don't know if we realized it, those books, for instance, the science books, that have, you use them up and you're supposed to buy them again the next year for thousands of dollars. We, at the time that came in, we didn't agree as a school committee on what we thought should happen with those books. Should we get a different series? What should we do? And with everything that's happened to us over these years, I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm saying that I just feel if we hadn't had some of the teachers that we have who went right along without their books and they made lessons and they shared lessons and they did whatever they needed to do. But we're not providing for them if that's the case. And if we need, I would really like to see, I'd really like to see us look into this in more detail as to who might need books. If you've ordered a half a set of books and then you haven't ordered the second half for the teacher, what good does that do if the person's used the first half but needed the second half to be part of it? So I just think we really need to start thinking about that. Go ahead, MJ.
I
Sorry.
just want to say, because that concerns me. I know you've brought the books up before, but I think my concern, though, too, is overall is how we meeting the curriculum and the standards if these are the tools that we're expecting to teach our students by. I'm not, what does that look like? Are there areas in our schools where those computers are broken, that there's no kind of replacement for them in the interim as they get fixed? Or I know that those answers can't be answered right tonight, but I'd like to find out what the overhaul is in our schools as to how many computers are down, and what the needs are that have yet to be met, and how the teachers are, where we are. Because I know we voted in a lot of curriculum. We just voted in for the middle school for that, the math curriculum 2 years ago, and it's all well and great, but if we can't, we need to supply curriculum for these kids and support and the tools for our teachers to teach by. So I'd be interested in if there's, if there are any concerns. I'd like to know what it's like throughout the.
We'll do something.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
I mean, computers do break.
Right,
and,
understandably.
we do attempt to fix them as soon as possible. So I haven't heard that, there's hundreds of computers that aren't working. Could be, I just haven't heard it myself. I know they break, and there's issues, and they have to be repaired, and, we have asked them to have an inventory on hand to replace them as other ones get fixed, but we can look into
I
that
can't
further.
really hear you. Did you say they already had an inventory? Because that was what I was asking for next.
Yeah, we've instructed them to, with funds that they have, to have some type of inventory to cover, so that we have additional computers, so if one breaks, to be repaired.
Could we also have an inventory, Paul, of all the textbooks from grades 6 through 12 that the teachers have and that they're using? And what is the date of their, what is the date of their copyright?
Okay.
Could we have
Thank you.
that? Because I'm really feeling in the budget this year, if I don't see that they're given those tools, I'll just say, I hope to see that they're given the tools that they need.
Okay. Julie?
I was piggybacking off of Mrs. Kane's comment that an inventory of both the hardware, the tools, the computers that we have available to our students, and the textbooks, and whatever other resources we're using in our curriculum, an inventory would be helpful to have, particularly for those age ranges and those grade ranges, because as we continue to add a year with the Chromebook program, I'd kind of like to know, I still don't have an answer to who's using what in the classroom. If this math class is using a textbook, is this history class using something online? It would be helpful to know that information so that when we do move into the budget process and we're hearing, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, that helps me make my decision as a school committee member, because the budget is a big piece of our job. So I think it would be helpful to have more detail. Who has what, who needs what, what's broken, what's not, so we can attack it.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I would recommend if teachers, I would recommend for them to go to the principal, right? So if I wanted to do a one-to-one lesson and I went into a Chromebook cart and there was 30 Chromebooks and 15 were broke, that would be something that I would go to my principal, say, hey, we got 15, and then we could expedite trying to fix things. So, I mean, I think the other piece too is you're gonna be our district is gonna be 6 to 12 Chromebooks, one-to-one device. So the shift is going to be online resources, unless the school committee changes the direction and goes to textbooks. Now, there's a lot of online resources that a lot of one-to-one communities that they're utilizing. And I think that's the struggle for us as adults, that we're used to textbooks and research, but our students are coming in, they're the digital natives. So, unfortunately, within, a lot of years, that they're not gonna have the textbooks and the resources that we had. So there are some extremely quality programs available for, the history teachers. So we're looking at another Pearson product. We're also looking at Discovery Ed, which is a U.S. history program, social studies program, all online, teacher resources, lesson plans tied into the Massachusetts frameworks, Common Core. It's all there. And so that's, I think, as we move forward, that's a decision of the community, because I think this is where education's going. And we need to be just as fast and furious of catching up with our students, because times are changing. So I think that, so when you're looking at investments, to invest in $50,000 worth of textbooks, that 3 years from now, if it's a social studies textbooks with all the changes and countries, and so 3 years from now, all that information in that hardcover textbook is now obsolete, versus online resources and textbooks and information is constantly being updated. And some of the online programs, they're updating every month. So I think that to me is when you're looking at a decision as a district. That's a big decision. The second piece that's probably, and this goes back to Peggy, the most important piece is if you are gonna go to an online resource, an online textbook, you need to train the teachers thoroughly. So one of the pieces, when we're looking at the Envisions math program, there's a whole online component that Lisa Murphy started doing training, and it was awesome. And so that's what as we inherited this, we're backtracking and trying to do the things, a few things very well, and that's part of it. So I hear I've met with the social studies department a few times, and I'll keep meeting with them, and we're listening. But I know as the budget is being produced, as Paul said, there is line items in there. There has been requests for resources, and we know that. So I think I know I'm on the ground level and working with principals to see the absolute needs of the district. So it is being addressed.
Can I just ask you, because I know, and I know it's been 2 or 3 years, I know that there was some concern with the level or the quality of a lot of the curriculum and resources out on the web, and that they were incomplete to some, they were complete to some standards, but not other aspects of those standards. And as we know, the standards are huge. I think that was some of the, I wonder, I guess too, as a question, if that's some of the problematic pieces with searching online for resources, never mind the time, and looking for quality curriculum to bring into the classroom to support the lesson. So I think, I don't know where that stands at this juncture. I know Pearson would be the first one, since they're the ones who drove that tool.
Sure.
But I wonder if that has some play into it as well, Sean, the difficulty of finding these resources. And so I think that, I'm old school, and I have no problem trying to change, but I may not be quite there.
No, I agree. And so when you're looking at these programs, so it's not like one of those Nooks or whatever, read a book, right? It's not a textbook online. It's interactive software. It's videos. It's accommodations, breaking down lessons. It gives the teachers, because that's one of the most beneficial aspects of that, is the teachers don't have to go look for resources. It's all built in. So they can spend time on delivering the education versus spending hours and hours looking for resource to enhance the curriculum. So a lot of these programs, when they come in, we kind of vet and we kind of look at them and share it with teachers. Say, hey, why don't you pilot this? Why don't you take a look at this? See what you think. And right now, that's what we're doing. One of a great program is Discovery Ed for science and social studies that we're looking at. But it has all of that in. I think that's the benefit for teachers once we train them, is they quickly realize, wow, all of the resources are here. I can utilize this for my curriculum, but I can focus more on the teaching, the learning, and meeting all the requirements, the accommodations for all my students. I think that's the key aspect. And I think it's fast and furious. I keep saying that because 2010, we were pooling departments together to find online resources to enhance the curriculum. Now the curriculum's coming that it's already all there. So if you wanted to pull out a video on Martin Luther King, it's right there for the class. And
As we've seen though too, and no disservice, is that the state puts forth a testing tool without having a curriculum to teach by, to utilize. So I just, especially with this new transition, as we'll discuss, I just want to ensure that, that those.
And we hear hey, I've been doing this.
I just
been
wanted
doing
to-
this a long time. I go out there, I hear the concerns, and we go back, we work with the principals, and we try to address them. So, and we'll keep working.
One thing, on the inventory, can we also see all the reading workshop books that are rolling at the reading workshop? We're talking a lot about 6 through 12, but the elementary schools, the texts that have been ordered to support the rollout of reading workshop, I think that was a big concern last year.
Correct, last year.
So I'd love to see
Right.
what's happened between then and now to support that rollout of such a rigorous, great program.
And I think
but-
as we develop the budget, we're addressing those concerns too.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, are we on 7?
No.
6? Yeah, so I think we talked a lot about a lot of this, through all our discussions right now, but, you know, the curriculum work that's been going on, pre-K to 12, as you all know, I reported over the summer, there was a lot of work that was done over the summer with teachers in the interdisciplinary at the high school, along with the Envisions Math Program Readers Workshop, PBIS, and all the above. Okay. I'll be back at the next school committee meeting if you need to follow up.
I'm doing a favor for you, look at all that red.
You didn't
I'll
see?
ask you separately.
All right, the last one is the personalized learning, which ties into a lot of the goals. And once again, remember, we're basing this district improvement plan off of that strategic plan. So we're kind of winding this down. And then we'll work with the new superintendent to develop a whole new strategic plan. But at this time, a lot of programs that we've already talked about, you know, the student advisory program at the high school, PBIS at the elementary school, MARC program at the middle school. The Naviance program is a great program that's been in place here. And I also believe at the middle school, we're looking to bring that down, but it's, and I think some of the senior parents or high school parents probably know about the Naviance program. It's a great program for college and career readiness, and it focuses on a lot of important aspects. So usually, and this is just the sample, usually in grade 9, the students develop a learning preference and personality profile. So they understand how they learn and where they're comfortable. And I was talking to Marie Callahan, and she said that when the students learn, this is kind of funny, the students learned how they learn best, and when the teacher wasn't teaching them how they learn best, they would say, hey, that's not my learning, my learning profile. Right? Linda knows that. If I sent out of class. No, I'm teasing. So I think that's awesome, and that's part of that program. Grade 10, you start to career map. Grade 11, you start to look at majors and colleges, and then grade 12, you really start to do your college planning and that. And then you start to, as part of that aspect, and what Chris Phillips is doing is the senior internship, trying to enhance that. But then you start to tie that in. The Naviance program, we have it at the middle school. I'm not sure if it's being utilized, but that's kind of one of our goals going into next year, because I think the earlier the students understand how they learn, the better. And part of that Naviance program, if it's done well, we used to utilize that, and then the teachers could get so if you have 25 students that first day, you could have all the learning profiles. So if you have visual learners, then you can start to change how you deliver for each class. And that's a longer goal down the road. But there you go.
All done, sounds good.
All right.
This is another one I struggle with, and I'll
All
be
right,
honest
which one?
why. Because sometimes we interchange the word personalized with individualized.
Yes.
And I
Personalized
want to
all
make the
different.
clarification that when we're talking about personalized learning, we're talking about every student, not just one particular group of students.
Everybody. Personalized learning. It's learning profiles. It gives, it's more than just knowing the student and what they do after school. It's, as a teacher, it's knowing how the students in front of you learn. So you can start to personalize, their learning opportunities are tied into the real world. It's like a whole.
And I would hope that we would also include enhancements for those
Absolutely.
that
Yep.
are looking for it.
Yeah, for the opportunities for some of your advanced learners, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Sean.
All right. Who's next?
I promise, none
It
of you
warmed
can
up.
any of that.
I say we bring Shar up here right now. We go out of order.
Kristen and Charlotte.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Sean.
Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you. So tonight, what we'll do is we'll just go over a summary of our 2016-17 goals, and then we'll just talk about our upcoming goals for this year. So last year, our school advisory council, both the early childhood centers, they meet together, and we combined both the Wildwood and the Boutwell together. So representing the Boutwell was myself, Erin O'Connor, Boutwell teacher, Kristen O'Toole, Katie Michaud, and Anna Lamb.
And we had myself along with Deanne England, who's the teacher, Jackie Stokes, teacher, and Christy Demrev and Charlene Galazzi, both Wildwood parents.
So last year, the Boutwell and the Wildwood, we had a combined goal, and then we also had a goal that was more individualized for each school. So looking at the combined goal, what we did was we had discussed that the year previous, there had been a new preschool report card. And so one of the things that we had noticed was that there wasn't a rubric that was created to allow for fidelity. So what we did was we went ahead and we worked last year with the preschool teams. Both Charlotte and I were there. And we created a report card rubric that focused on the following domains: language and literacy, mathematics, fine sensory and gross motor skills, social emotional development, and approaches to play and learning. We worked pretty much, we met monthly, some months we met bi-weekly, and we worked very well with the whole group, and we were able to develop a rubric that we felt was able to touch upon all those domains, and so we will be implementing that this year with the new report card.
And the hope of that is that if you have a child that attends Boutwell or you have a child that attends Wildwood, however they're assessed, it's using the same materials and the same standards in the same phrasing for all the testing, so it's consistent across both sides of town, which is really nice.
In 2016-17, the Boutwell formed an inclusive PBIS team, and we worked to create a rollout plan for full implementation for the 2017-18 school year. So again, we met bi-weekly. The team consisted of administration, classroom teachers, educational assistants, and other support staff, and we worked with the coach from Wadiko. And we created the Boutwell mission statement, our 3 core values, which our students came just recently to perform our little chant. And then we also created a behavior matrix. We have 13 detailed lesson plans. We created a school-wide both student and staff incentive program. And we are working on creating a data collection system so that we can kind of monitor what's going on within the building. And so we're pleased to announce that we have started fully implementing PBIS this year, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes.
And the Wildwood goal, to back up a little bit from the Boutwell goal, we were in cohort 2 in terms of PBIS, so we were receiving a little bit less coaching, and we were kind of going at a slower pace than the Boutwell was. So we decided to focus on making sure that each classroom and each staff member was fully implementing the practices of responsive classroom, which sort of lays the foundation and works hand in hand with PBIS. So that was our goal for last year. We worked really hard to make sure that all staff were trained, and any staff that weren't able to participate in a full week of training the summer before last were able to participate in kind of a one-day overview. So every staff that works at the Wildwood and the Boutwell, even though this was our goal, was trained. So that was really nice and really consistent for all the kids. And it helped us to prepare for our goal this year, which you'll hear in just a minute.
So looking at this year for the 2017-18, again, we've been meeting monthly. Myself on the Boutwell side, Kristen O'Toole, Erin O'Connor, which are both Boutwell teachers, and again, Katie Michaud.
Yeah. Oh, and there I am with my old name, which should be King.
Don't tell them.
I answer to any and all names. So we also have Jackie Stokes, Wildwood teacher, Jessica Kozlowski, Wildwood teacher, and Cara Pereira and Tia DiGiovanni, Wildwood parents.
Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so we have a common goal this year that we're working on together to promote family and community engagement at both early childhood centers. The different ways that we are hoping to engage families are through our PACs with monthly meetings and enrichment activities for both students and families. Through our school advisory council, which, as we said, meets monthly and jointly with both schools, alternating locations. That's just another opportunity for parents and families to have input in the school improvement and to be updated on curriculum and things like that. We both schools hold an orientation for families at the beginning of the year to familiarize people with routines, procedures, curriculum. We hold, new in the last couple of years, we hold a registration information meeting in February. It's extremely well attended. We do it on both sides of town. We try to do it right in the same week. We give basic information about the school, registration, preschool lottery process. We found that it's eliminated a lot of phone calls and emails to us, and the public seems to like it. We also are on WCTV, so feel free to watch us. And then we've both worked really hard to have social media updates on our official Facebook pages, Twitter, website, and we both communicate weekly through the Connect 5 email system.
Any questions?
Seeing none.
So the Boutwell Early Childhood Center, so the school improvement goal that we have, so that's the combined, the one that we have, is to create a consistent, positive school climate for all members. Our goal is that 100% of staff will be implementing PBIS into their daily routines by June of 2018. And I can tell you that we have been, again, continuing this year. We have been having biweekly meetings. Once a month, we now have meetings with Chris from Wendigo. We have presented staff and parent an overview of what PBIS is. We've done some, kind of informal information for them. We've also provided staff some workshop. The team came together and we created a PD opportunity for them. We have monthly school-wide community meetings where all the students, staff, and administration all combine together, and we have school-wide community meetings to promote this. I do provide PBIS updates for staff and families monthly. That's also done with the team. Any information that we decide as a team, we roll out with staff and we get their input, and we know that it's the first year of implementation, and there is going to be changes and there's going to be tweaks, and so we really have it so that it's open communication for everyone involved. We will be using the continuous use of the student and staff recognition. So for staff, what that looks like is a lot of times staff, go above and beyond. We have a very hardworking staff in all the schools, and I think sometimes some of the things they do go unnoticed because people don't want that personal, kind of, I'm the one who did this, it's more of a team. And so basically what that is it's anonymous, and in the staff room, right at the door where people go in and out, if somebody notices someone did something above and beyond, we just kind of put a little sticky note up there and say, hey, thanks, I noticed you did this, or hey, thanks for doing that. And it really builds the school culture. And it's a positive place, and people really appreciate it, and they say, hey, you know what, it is something somebody's noticing. Wow, that's really nice that I've been noticed or recognized for doing that. So we've noticed the school culture it's extremely positive, and a lot of staff have done it. And it's funny, someone's like, oh, they noticed I did that, or oh, I didn't know someone saw me doing this. So that was really nice. And with students, we also do that. Staff is encouraged to give out a paw, which is just a paw a day for a student. When they collect 3, they come down to the office where they get the big paw and they get a little bracelet. And we make a big to-do. There's a big bulletin out front. And I always say to the children, tell me what was one thing you did that earned this paw. And they can tell you, different things that they did that they're proud of. And so we really kind of validate that and make them feel that, wow, you are part of the team. You're what makes our school amazing. So it really gives them a lot of positive, it just gives them a lot of confidence. And we are doing the ongoing data collection to track achievement and kind of identify trends. Are there certain times in the school year where we're noticing that, behaviors are amping up? Is something going on? What can we do? Do we have to revisit certain things? Is something going on with the buses? Is something going on in the cafeteria? So it really kind of gives us some good information to go by to see if we have to revisit certain things and certain lessons and hone in on certain areas. So that's what we're going to be working on this year. Any questions?
And then the Wildwood goal is similar to the Boutwell goal, but again, we're kind of a year behind because we were in that second cohort. So we are looking at kind of laying the groundwork for what Boutwell is actually implementing this year. So we are also meeting bi-weekly with our school-based PBIS team and the Wadiko coach. We are working on constructing the lesson plans that Kristen talked about. I'm also doing updates and staff feedback monthly at staff meetings. Someone from the PBIS team reports out what work we've accomplished so far, and we look for staff feedback as we move forward. We're in the process this year of researching a data collection system. We have developed the student recognition system is in process. We've already developed a staff one. We worked on that last year, so that's continuing. And then we'll develop a student recognition system, which is somewhat similar to Boutwell's, but every school's is going to be kind of unique to their own school. So, so we're looking forward to that work. We have a very, very enthusiastic team, and we have new members even this year who wanted to join, so it's really nice and really effective.
MJ?
Thank you. Researching an effective data collection system, is it not similar in the same, is your data collecting system would they be the same?
So the beauty of being in cohort 2, even though we're a little bit behind, is we get to look at a lot of their material and use it. So it will most likely be very similar.
Yeah. And so what we're doing right now, and so we've done, tallies and kind of data like spreadsheets, but what we're looking at, and we talked to the coach about this, is are there data collection tools that we could use that are more advanced, if you will, so that we can pull specific kind of information. And so that's something that we're going to be working on this year.
Well, because I was just thinking, if you use a similar data collecting tool to gather that data, I would think that that data shared amongst the 2 schools would be helpful in driving this piece further as well. So if, that's why I was just a little curious
Yes,
if it was going to be the same, so that the data would be accurate to, build off of.
And although, Boutwell received the coaching last year, and we're in cohort 1 and Wildwood is in cohort 2.
I see.
Charlotte and I work very well and closely together to say, okay, hey, this is what we noticed when we were kind of designing our lesson plans. You know, you might want to tweak this or think about that because we didn't. And then, you know, and then again, our lesson plans are kind of a work in progress, you know, and we do updates. When we rolled it out this year, we met with the staff and we said, you know, I gave them all a survey and I said, what worked, what didn't work, what materials did you feel you needed more of? You know, and so we got that data, and overall, it was a really positive response. And the staff really seems to like it, and overall, we've noticed the negative behaviors have definitely decreased, and the students are much more aware of kind of what's going on. And again, we still do the responsive classroom, which is a lot of community building. So it's really kind of putting the two together, and now seeing that all come together is really, it's amazing to see.
Great.
So, yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, and I would welcome anyone to come on and then visit and see it in action.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lisa and Jeff up from Shawshene and Woodman Street.
Hello.
You're my clicker.
I'm your, welcome, whatever you say.
Thank you. Thank you. So part of the Shawshene School Advisory Council for 2016-2017 is myself, Mrs. Flaherty, classroom teacher, Mrs. Patterson, our librarian, Mrs. Murphy, she's still here. She was my principal intern last year. Mrs. Toth was a community member. Mrs. Nadawada is a parent, and Mrs. Johnson was also a parent on the committee. Oh, what? That's the
No,
same
you were going
slide.
to do, no, this is 2017.
Oh, okay. So then the new, I guess this slide got mixed up, that's okay. On the committee this year is myself still, Mrs. Flaherty, Mrs. Patterson, Mrs. Toth, and Mrs. Nadawada. Okay, so this is our goal from last year, and these are the action steps that were part of the goal, so I can talk a little bit about that. And the goal was to improve consistency and effectiveness of reading instruction with grades 1 and 3. So this was really based on our Readers Workshop initiative. And these are the different action steps that we had in place as part of our goal. And I'm happy to say that we were able to meet all these action steps. So students participated in the independent reading, increasing the amount of time. Teachers learned and implemented conferring using the Research, Decide, Teach format. Teachers have and will continue to use anchor charts. Teachers created a place and system for students to store books. Teachers implemented a system for students to choose books based on interest. And teachers, students how to choose just right books, and have established classroom libraries and have been organized by genre, author, topic, and student. And teachers will do daily mini lessons. So these were all part of when Mrs. Banishevitz came through our reading coordinator and talked about at the beginning of last year and during last year all the different initiatives of Readers Workshop. This is all of the vision that we had for the year for teachers to accomplish. So this was the first year, and they did accomplish these goals. And I know, Peggy, you don't like these words, and Julie, so we will change them for next time. But last year, we did Closing the Achievement Gap. And due to the reconfiguration, as Sean has talked about the MCAS, we cannot give exact percentages. However, I took all of the action steps that we set forth within our goal, and I can talk to all of those. So last year, we review MCAS data. We still review all the current data that we have based on standards and all the information that we have to make better decisions on moving forward with the curriculum. And worked with the data specialist and the literacy coordinator and district data specialist and teachers to understand where the weaknesses are in our students. We do have data team meetings where I meet with grade level teachers, specialists, special educators, reading teachers, and we do that. We were doing it monthly, now we're doing it bi-monthly. We evaluate beginning of the year the Ames Web data, our Fontes and Pinnell data. We're still doing that, so we're taking in all of our reading assessments but especially focusing on and identifying struggling learners. And we do that during our meeting time together as teams and groups so that we're all on the same page. We identify which struggling learners are receiving support services. That does not necessarily mean that the students are on IEP. It could be reading supports, any students at all that are going through the IST process. Sean talked about the DCAP. These are kids that are coming to IST. We're looking at the DCAP. We're talking about what can we do for all of these students. They do not need to be receiving services for them to get the supports they need in the building. We are meeting with the special educators to ensure current goals that align with the standards toward individual student goals for reading. Again, because we were really focusing on the ELA portion of this. As you know, our math MCAS scores had been going up over the past year, so we're still focusing on the reading. And reviewing reading specialist schedules to target in-class interventions for struggling readers. I found that to be very successful last year. Really taking a look at everyone's schedule and really making the most of our reading specialists who are experts in this area and putting them into classrooms when they're not taking out small groups and focusing on that list of struggling learners and then matching them to specific classrooms to get the most out of that time. And meeting with all stakeholders, reading specialists, grade level, teammates, and participating, as Sean mentioned, that one of the goals was the walkthroughs on really focusing on reading instruction with the support of the literacy coordinator. So that was something all of us district leaders have focused on, was the walkthroughs and really specifically being able to give feedback that not necessarily is evaluative, but just feedback so that they can improve the instruction on these new initiatives. Okay, and we also are working on PBIS. We did have a Wadiko trainer last year as well. So we were able to establish, we were just at the beginning stages last year. This will be our second year, so I will have a goal for this year based on this. But at this point last year, we were just establishing a team and learning about PBIS, establishing roles of the team, creating our vision and meeting norms, establishing a meeting schedule goals. We were meeting bi-weekly all year long, and with the coach, we were able to create a behavior matrix last year and established a data system for PBIS and how we were going to implement it. And this year, we're off and running again with it, and our next goal will show the extension of this from last year.
It's my turn.
It's your turn.
Okay.
This is like questions.
Hi. So just to thank last year's School Advisory Council, which was myself, Lisa Bernalami, Amy Metcalf, Lil Maselli, Stephen Morad, and Heather Campanella. They worked very hard to help develop last year's school improvement plan. This year is myself, Cheryl Hackett, Heather Campanella again, Barbara Fowle, Charlene Galazzi, and actually Jennifer just let me know she can't do it anymore. So, but that's okay. She has personal commitments that, so she had to excuse herself, but it was up there when I sent it in. So you're going to see some things that are very similar to Shawsheen. Actually, I made a mistake. It should say grades 1 and 3. I don't know why I put a dash in there. I guess what I was thinking is this year it's grades 1, 2, and 3 are all doing Reader's Workshop. Last year was grades 1 and 3 were the first cohort, and then this year's second grade. So again, I'm not going to repeat everything, but you know, last year with TLA, with the reading coach, they worked with teachers, sometimes in whole groups, sometimes individual, on all of these same things. And it's honestly, it's been amazing to see. And it's funny, if you talk to some of the teachers at the beginning of the year, it was, this is a lot of work. Are we really going to do this? Is it going to show? Like, how do we know the kids are going to be making progress? And by the end of the year, they were like, this is great. And we could actually see, maybe not through data, but we could see the improvements that students made, not just in their ability to read, but their love for reading. Like them coming up to me out of nowhere and telling me about a book they read. Just those things alone were worth it. And we talked about, all the lesson plans, and, we used the Lucy Calkins units of study. That's a lot of work to go through that. If you don't know Lucy, she talks a lot in her text. And it takes a lot to kind of, dissect what's important. But once the teachers actually figured out how to do that, they went off and running with it. And now the first cohort is, they don't have to worry about those lesson plans now. Now they can focus on other things. And I know it was brought up about the books. And, do teachers have enough books for Reader's Workshop? And that's something that, as principals and with Sean, we've talked about, what are good resources for books. We're the ones, right now we're looking at, this past year we looked at nonfiction because it's really hard to find quality nonfiction that's at different levels. So we're able to purchase a lot of that. And then we'll look at for next year, what is second grade. And sometimes we don't know until we kind of go through half of the year or so, and they're like, okay, we need this. And then we get it. So it's a work in progress, but it's definitely, it's something that we talk about all the time, is if we want teachers to do this and do it well, they have to have the resources to go with it. A big thing of this too, when you think about just write books, might sound a little bit, but it's a huge part of Reader's Workshop, because a huge part of Reader's Workshop is getting students to read books independently and to be able to choose books that are on their level. Not too hard, not too easy, because when you can get students to do that, then they can read independently, and and the teacher can work with other students. And then the teacher can work with students on whatever skill it was that she or he just taught. So it's a huge part of it. I can tell you now that the second grade teachers, because first grade was in the first cohort, the second grade teachers they're having to spend less time with the kids on choosing just right books, which is great. So that, that kind of, whether it's 2 or 3 weeks of doing that, has now been cut in half, and they can move on to other things. So we're seeing some really good progress with that. Sorry, closing the achievement gap. I will say is I know that's it's a catchphrase or whatever you want to call it, but the way I look at closing the achievement gap, the first step for me in closing the achievement gap, and what I mean by the achievement gap is, the goal of special education is not to maintain kids. It's really, if kids are in special education, it's intensive services, and many times to get them caught up, because, remedial services is because they're in special ed because they've fallen behind because of a disability. So essentially it is, if you think of it as a graph, we don't want kids going like this, because here are the kids that are meeting the benchmark. Here are the students with special needs, and they're never going to meet. We want these kids to make more progress than our students, than our general ed students, because, by the time they leave Woburn Street, by the time they leave, North, middle, high school, we want these kids to have the same skills as other kids. And the goal of special education is to teach them those skills so that they can do it independently. So I understand what you're saying. Can all students get to that point? I don't know. But I think the goal should always be, to get them there. And that's kind of, when I think of the achievement gap, is what are we doing to get those kids there? And for me, it always starts with, your core curriculum, your tier 1 supports. And we talk a lot about the DCAP. If we have good core instruction for all students, we're making accommodations or modifications when necessary. Kids don't need to be on IEPs or 504 plans to do that. We're going to have less kids that are falling behind. So that's why with the Reader's Workshop model, it's working out great, because the kids are getting a lot of one-on-one attention. So we're hoping that we're catching kids sooner. We're giving them the skills before they fall behind. And that's going to help us with that gap. So a lot of different things about data. And when Sean talked earlier about kind of revamping our data meetings, some of the things that we're doing now, because we're actually seeing now that some of the assessments that we've used in the past are no longer good. They're not useful. Sometimes it's just we do them because we've always done them. So what we're looking at now is getting rid of those and trying new things. For example, foundations. Now foundations is in grades, for me, it's grades 1 and 2. And that comes with really good assessments. And foundations looks at, phonics, phonemic awareness, those types of skills. And now we're starting to use that data to have data meetings. We're using our reading specialists to kind of facilitate those meetings. Again, Fontes and Pinnell, we're looking at that data. Just another example with, this isn't, that's mostly reading, but when we talk about math, one of the things as a leadership team, after talking with teachers and kind of seeing it for ourselves, is we've always done a pre-topic assessment in math and then a post-topic assessment, like at end of the unit, before the unit starts and end of the unit. And we all feel like, not all, most of us feel as though the kids that we're giving these students a test that we know 99% of the kids are not going to do well on. So why are we giving that? So if we start off teaching, we're going to know pretty quickly what kids know what. We don't necessarily have to have a test on skills that they haven't learned yet. So what we did is we kind of made it optional for this year. If teachers have used it and they find it useful, they can continue. If teachers don't find it useful, that they're not required to do it, and that's another day of, whether it's review, teaching, interventions, extensions. So we're looking to see how that works. And yes, PBIS. I think you've heard that before. So we are also in cohort 2, similar to Wildwood. I was told that, I'm not naming names, but that even though we're technically in our first year, we're pretty far along as far as first year goes. Last year we didn't have the coach, but as a school we said this is important, we want to start it anyway. So we put our team together and we started meeting, and by the end of last year, with the help of Alice, we developed our behavior matrix, which technically we probably weren't supposed to work on until this year. So we're a little bit ahead of where, a typical school in their first year would be. We've gone over, we've reviewed it, we've edited it, we've met with the whole staff. So we have that in place right now, which is great. And now we're going to start working on the lesson plans. We're going to start talking about where are those spaces in the school that we need to target first. Bathrooms, excuse me. That was a joke. I said bathrooms. But looking at those places where we really need to make sure that we're explaining to the kids what are the expected behaviors. I joke about bathrooms, but that's, if you think about it, that's the one place where they're not supervised. Like, we don't go into the bathrooms. We might hang out outside, but you hear some singing and dancing going on in the bathrooms, and we just need to teach the kids what is appropriate bathroom behavior. So that's going to be, I'm not saying that's what we're doing next, but these are the things that we're going to talk about and be very strategic about as far as teaching students the skills to kind of, show these expected behaviors. And one of the things we are doing right now as well is, we have developed a staff recognition kind of process, and then we're going to be looking at how to do that for our students. And similar to what you heard before about really highlighting the positive things that are going on with students.
Okay, so Jeff and I worked together this year with our goals, and this is just a continuation of year 2 of Reader's Workshop. And so now it's really 100% of the staff is going to be working on the balanced literacy model by implementing Reader's Workshop. And I'm not going to go through all the bullet points, but all of these bullet points are different things that we are expecting that teachers will be doing by the end of this year. Some of them have begun this process, but now it will be all 3 grade levels, and you can see that there is added components into this, such as now they'll be doing regular conferring with students daily. and, the lesson planning and aligning their mini lessons with the workshop model.
Yeah, and one of the things we really looked at last year, and it might sound like not a big deal in this whole Reader's Workshop, we want kids reading and learning to read. But last year, we really focused on creating a place for students to read within their classroom libraries. We got the teachers new rugs, we got them furniture, we got, bean bags or whatever it is. We worked with teachers on organizing their libraries, which there's no one way of doing it. Teachers kind of had the freedom of kind of choosing how they wanted to do it that best fit the students that they had. And that was kind of an easy way to get this started, and it was a fun way. We got to pick furniture. But when you go around to classrooms, you can see where the classroom library is, because it's almost like the fun place in the classroom. Like, some people have tents, and don't tell the fire department, I don't know if we're supposed, but there's different things going on that get the kids excited about reading.
Okay, so one of our goals as a district also is to really increase communication with family and community members to promote student successes in programming. So, and this also goes along with PBIS, but also communication. And so these are some different action steps that we hope to accomplish this year, which I know that some of the leadership team has already started, like this evening with student presentations at school committee meetings. Classroom teachers will invite families in for student work showcasing events. Again, just more of that outreach, promoting family literacy nights, increasing our communication content of school happenings. And then we combine this with our PBIS goal, which is really the big goal of really continuing on with team vision, meeting norms, the behavior matrix. I think we both are meeting bi-weekly. And the Shawsheen, now that we're on our second year, even though we said we were then going to meet monthly, we're still doing it every other week, so that's okay. And lesson planning and reviewing and revising a data system for PBIS in the implementation.
May I just respectfully comment that, especially with the communication piece, that the element of clear is maybe a part of that goal in some format?
This is just, no, I agree with you. I think
I'm
this
just-
is just, this is just kind of overview.
Right.
But, when we talk about it specifically, there are specific things that we're going to do as a school and specific things that they're going to do, and it might not be the same thing. For example, it was actually my daughter's middle school, and I remember we were at an open house, and the principal was talking about communication plans. So all the teachers there worked on a communication plan. So that way they would share that with parents, so parents would know specifically how this teacher communicates. So what I did for our staff is I kind of came up with an activity, and I put one together for myself as a model and said, I'm not saying we don't communicate well with parents. I said, but in order for parents to, parents don't know us. They might be coming from other districts, or, a child had a different teacher last year, and, the parent had a different teacher. So that way we're all clear, and parents are clear on how we communicate. So what kind of tools are we using? What is the frequency? If you email me, when am I going to get back to you? All these different things, so that it kind of doesn't leave anything, kind of out in the open, like, why haven't I heard? Or where am I going to find this information? Like, it's kind of all right there. And the nice thing that I heard today, we actually started our staff meeting today, was I heard teachers talking with each other, which was kind of an unintended activity that happened, is the teachers were talking with each other about how they do different things, and they're like, oh, that sounds interesting, or, I've really wanted to try that. They use technology or different apps. So it was a nice conversation that I heard a lot of teachers having about that. So again, I think we, as a school, do a really nice job, but there's always things that we could improve on, which is, clarity, timeliness. So again, talking about, being on the same page. When you get an email, when do you respond? Well, that should be the same as when the teacher on the other side of the building responds. So, just having those conversations.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Christine and Dennis, the North and West?
I'll push the button.
Slide comes up.
All right, so we can start with talking about our school councils for this year, for 2017 and 2018. Myself at the North, Sheila Burke, who's also here tonight for moral support as our teacher representative. She also serves as our assistant principal. Jennifer Erickson, who's a parent rep, and Lori Morad, who's a parent rep. And I would like to give a shout out to Tricia Xavier, who was part of our group last year.
West, it's myself, Kelly Sullivan, teacher representative, Vera Gravelisi, teacher representative. She's also my assistant principal, as well as a reading specialist. Jody Graziano, a parent. I have to apologize publicly to Jody because I just realized that her name is Jody, not I. Jody, I'm sorry. And Janine Fitzpatrick, a parent representative. So if I could, these are our current goals for this year. Okay, we don't have the summary up here of last year's plans. You all have that now in the documents attached to last year's plan with the summary, just to make that clear, because it might look a little bit different from some of the things that we've seen.
So this is going forward with year 2 and ensuring effective instruction in the area of literacy. And really, we're looking at this as a 2-year plan to continue with the Reader's Workshop model. And just to sort of echo what the principals before us were saying, I would have to say that the teachers jumped in feet first last year. It was year 1, it was new, it was a year of growing, and they were all in. And they really worked to develop the classroom and make it a place where literacy was a priority. And so as you go through the action steps here for year 2, we're going to be doing a lot of refining and a lot of growing ourselves as teachers in this balanced literacy block. So the mini lesson will become more crisp and more timely and more condensed. The independent reading, getting more kids reading at their independent reading level so they can grow. The conferring will strengthen, and we'll be building in some strategy groups, and the reader's notebook will also be used much more in year 2. The coaching will continue with the Teaching and Learning Alliance. It's very individualized this year, and teachers are getting what they need based on where they are in the process. And there's principal coaching that goes along with that. We sit with the TLA coach, and we learn as well with our teachers. We're identifying students to target them that might not be reading at grade level, and then we're hoping over the course of this year and the second year that when they leave us at the intermediate schools that we've brought them up to grade level. There'll be more calibration done with the assessments that we use 2 times a year, and for those students who receive services, they are assessed 3 times a year. And back to the question about the books, we are putting great quality, rich literature books in students' hands. So there are 5th grade students working in book clubs, and there are students reading books of high interest because teachers have worked with the reading specialists in the book room to find something that's going to catch that reader. And it's really meeting kids where they are. The best part, I would say, of year 2 is that we've already been through year 1, and we have students that have just rolled up that know the structure, that know what it means to have a conference with their teacher, how to select a Just Right book. So we're building on that foundation in year 2. So it's exciting to think about what's going to happen for us as a district in year 3 and year 4. And I'll tell a quick anecdote that earlier this year, we had a student in the 5th grade in Mrs. Burke's classroom. She got a call from the secretary to do something quickly on the computer that was timely and needed. And so she said, boys and girls, I'm going to step away for just a moment to the computer. Give me just a minute and I'll be right back to you. They were all sitting on the rug. And one of the young men in the 5th grade said, this would be a great time to turn and talk. So they're growing their language on how they share with one another about what they're learning and about what they're reading. So we're building each year, and so this is the exciting part of year 2.
I'm not sure if I can add anything to that, because that was pretty well done, Christine. I will say, but you know, at the West, a little bit of a bumpy start last year through the year, a couple of bumps that we hit. We've worked through them. Matter of fact, we just came off 2 great days of coaching. We got back-to-back days with coaching, one-to-one with the teachers, you know, so that was something I had asked for, to get us all kind of caught up and on the same page, and it was 2 really good days put together, so things are really going well. What's nice, one of the bigger goals we had from last year was, you know, building the stamina in the kids so they can actually do their, you know, their independent reading and things like that, you know, and you can walk in classrooms now and you do see the kids strewn all over the place, like Jeff talked about, you know, different places to be, and they're under desks and tables and laying on radiators and things like that, but they're reading. And, you know, and they're reading like, you know, for 35, 40 minutes, you know, and that's, for some kids that's easy, and for a lot of kids it's not, you know what I mean? So that was one of the bigger things this year. And the whole calibrating the benchmarks was really because it's funny what we've noticed over the past couple of years, and this is across town, is, you know, like slight variations in the scores between the grades, you know what I mean? So we're just wondering, you know, is it the training piece, the administration piece, because there is some subjectivity in giving the BAS test. So we're spending some time this year, you know, with some retraining and just recalibrating that. That's what for that there. Oh, and listen, of course, we got ours in 14-point font, right? I mean, I wish I had known. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I'm not
Mrs. Bryson, I'm sorry.
closing the gap. I refer to it as the opportunity gap, because it's not, I mean, it's not just special ed, but we're talking about low SES or those acquiring a second language. So I'm thinking, sure, we want to, I mean, I think we're thinking we want to enhance all student achievement, right?
Get more students to do better.
But I also, so my question actually refers right to that, and we had talked about this a little bit last year, which is why I feel comfortable kind of, no, I'm kidding. But I just, a question about, when we're talking about pushing from here so that we are reaching benchmark, with the Reader's Workshop, which you know I'm a huge fan of, but is the grade level and the rigorous, the complex text. And so if our students who are not at benchmark are reading just right books, when are they reading grade level books? And are there, and I guess then it goes back to, are there enough of those books? Do they actually have the text in their hands? Are they just looking at it? Are they just listening to it? So I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but that's something that when I'm thinking of this gap or really accelerating student achievement, I'm thinking of the Just Right is an important piece of a balanced literacy program, but it also means they're getting good exposure to the grade level and above the grade level. And so when is that happening? And you don't have to answer me right now, but that's just kind of a
quick answer for that one there. A lot of it happens with the mentor text when they're doing the mini lessons and things like that, because those books are selected to be of a higher level.
Right.
You know, and it's interesting because one of the debates we have internally is there's like one mentor text. You know what I mean? So the kids are supposed to, like, you know, sit there and listen to it, respond to it, and things like that, but every student doesn't have one in the hands. So now we talk, okay, we'll get dock cameras in an extra book so we can project passages and things like that. We did that last year. Now it's like, you know something, should we be buying a dozen of these for each thing, you know? So we're kind of going through that internal debate right now, just because of that, so we can put that high-level rich literature in everybody's hands to sit and read it.
I just don't want to see us make so many advances, because this is such a strong
Right.
approach to teaching literacy, but it's that pendulum, right? So we have anthology, everyone's reading the same, everyone's on grade, and so I see this all the time. Districts will kind of just go, okay, we'll do it, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, now no one's reading grade level text.
Right.
So it's this constant swing, and last year I was at the
We talked about
drop-off
it a
line,
lot,
we
yeah,
talked about it every
absolutely,
day.
yeah.
I was like,
Absolutely,
what about the grade level text, and are they do they have it? Like, are they actually, do they have it in their hands, or are they just, so I just wanted to point that out as we move forward.
It's perfectly fine and valid, because we actually decided on one of the texts to buy us a classroom set, so everyone can have it, and just see how that goes. You know, does that make it be better instruction? Because, okay, we'll commit the money, buy the mentor text, so every student has it. Let's see where that takes us.
And we did that for grade 4 this year, just to try for the Tiger Rising in grade 4. That's the first mentor text in fiction that they do read. And a lot of it has to go back to when they're writing and they're responding to the text. Can they go back into the book and find the evidence easily with their Post-its? So we're trying that this year to see if it is a benefit. You know, if you would speak to Lucy Calkins when you go and talk to her, she would say they should not have the book in their hand. But on occasion, certain kids do need that book to follow along, to stay focused, or to just be more present in the moment during the read aloud.
We good?
Good. Done.
Okay. Okay, getting more students to do better is what we're trying to do here. And again, this is very similar to last year in math. It's the same thing. We don't want you to think we're forgetting about math because everything we're doing is ELA focused. This year, we've kind of shifted. If you think a few years ago, everything was math, 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 math. Now we're starting to swing the pendulum back, to steal your phrase. So a couple of things Christine and I are trying out this year, which is, and this goes back to actually what Mrs. Kane was talking about with the data and things like that. We're relying much, much more on our own data. We're setting up like mini data cycles every 6 weeks to meet with our special ed teachers, our reading instructors, our at-risk students every 6 weeks instead of waiting for progress reports and things like that, saying, okay, how are these kids doing? How are we moving forward with them? What else can we do for them? So we're using that stuff that we have, and it might not always be a test. It might just be, hey, look at this worksheet. You know what I mean? He's starting to get it. You know what I mean? Kind of a thing. So, and we're collecting those things. We are all using the Envisions online testing. It definitely helps prepare the students for when they have to take the online tests as well, and it's more exposure to it. So that's been ongoing. I also have a couple with the use of end-of-unit data to determine students in need of topic interventions. There's a couple of days now built into our pacing charts where students can get the extra support at the end of a unit. I also have a couple of teachers, if I can just go sideways just for a second, that asked if they want to continue to use the pre-test in math this year because they're actually, 2 classrooms kind of combine the kids, instead of 2 classes of 25, it's like 1 class of 50. So they're taking the pre-test. They're looking at the pretest, they're saying, okay, who gets it already, who doesn't get it already? They're regrouping the kids. One of the teachers taking the kids that get it, the other teacher's taking the kids that are struggling. It's also a class that has the support of a special education inclusion teacher, so she becomes a 3rd group. So now we have this whole group moving together. They stay on pace, they still test on the same day, but the instruction is really differentiated within that larger group. They've gone through 3 units so far, and it's really working well. They actually reported out to the staff today as a best practice thing at our staff meeting. So, and when they reported that out, that it's working well, I'd be surprised if by tomorrow the whole staff is doing it, because I really like the idea of just being able to kind of, use that pre-test data as you're supposed to. It doesn't mean the kids are going to get it up front, but it tells you who's getting it and who's not, so.
And I'll just jump on the piece about the online tools within Envisions. And for us to track information, we talked about the professional development that Lisa Murphy just did last Tuesday. And, teachers already jumping on to create a Google Classroom that's really individualized for those kids in front of them for their math, and then giving them some of the different available tools within to practice more if it's a struggling area, if the concept is difficult, or if they see them falling behind. So really building on our knowledge on the online tools that can benefit us and really learn from. So, I was able to include some information in the progress report about our MCAS, although it's a different type of a test, and you really can't compare the two. We had some great growth at the North, and I think the most important trend that we're seeing at the North is that last year and this year in math, that the students at our school who are high needs and the non-high needs, they're growing at the same rate. So somebody just mentioned that when we're talking about the trajectory, we always want the kids to grow, and sometimes the students who are high need students have to grow a little faster. So they're growing at a similar rate. They might not be achieving yet at the same rate, but they're growing at a similar rate. And so that was really good news for us with regard to math.
Yeah, and that was the same with the West, with like some remarkable growth from some of our students who do receive extra services and things like that, which helps them to get that leg up, as Jeff said, because they really have to do more than everyone else if they want to end up at the end of the race, kind of, at the same spot. So, all right.
So this is our social emotional learning goal. It's very much connected to PBIS at the North. We are in cohort 2, but we did get a jump start last year with support, but this year we have the coaching once a month. So the good news is last year we did create a team. This year we included a parent. So we have teachers, parents, as well as Christine Murray, who's our behavioral health coordinator. And we have a nice representation across the staff. Our goal this year is to develop the full matrix. We, similar to the Woburn Street, began with the bathrooms, and that's an area that we notice incidents. So also, we are participating in the coaching with Chris Reiger from Wadico. And also, last year, we developed, the meeting norms, a mission statement, and, how we were going to take votes. And so that was really important work to get done, almost pre-year one, so we were really lucky to get a jump start. You heard our core values from the North earlier on tonight when we had the student council here, and now it's more of trying to get those out to the parents, to the community, and using them. So 2 good news points there for the North. Our assignment notebooks that the students receive at the beginning of the year as a gift from the PAC, the cover said, "Be your best self." So it completely aligned with what we were working on. And then also at the school store that the PAC runs, they were selling the tumblers that said, "Be your best self." So it's kind of like, let's get everybody on the same page and focus on the core values and have everybody understand them. And we also do the same thing, and we touch base once a month with the bigger staff, and we talk about our updates here from the PBIS team.
And I can say that Christine got the leg up last year because we were doing PBIS at the start of the year, formally doing PBIS. Kind of realized we had all, the West as a staff, about 5 years before that, had kind of undertaken this on our own to see what we could do. So a lot of the work that the coach was doing with us, we felt we had already done it. We already had matrices in place and everything else. So we were confident, being able to kind of move forward on our own. And that allowed, like my coaching slot to go to the North. So they were able to get a head start. You're welcome. We do work well together. And the other thing I'm looking at this year as well, I know that in the upper grades, they're using the MARC program. So I actually just emailed them last week, just to get some information back in the MARC program to see what it looks like at our grade level as well, because there may be pieces of that we can integrate into what we're doing going forward. I'm sorry, MJ, I'm pointing at you.
I know, I keep bringing this up, so I apologize. We brought in the collaborative problem-solving piece, which I think would dovetail nicely with the PBIS piece.
We still use that.
You do, but it's.
Yes.
But is that increasing throughout the district? I mean, we spent a lot of money to see this roll out throughout the district, and I'm not seeing it, granted, we haven't heard from the middle school yet, but I haven't seen that come up as a part of any of this piece or this goal.
I think I can answer for you. First off, these are bullets, these aren't the whole plans,
Right.
First off.
Right.
In the CPS, right, there was an awful lot of fanfare when that became something that we were able to become involved in, and that worked out well, and we were able to get, staff trained at the West. My school psychologist, Bethany Dion, attended, she got certified as a trainer to train the trainer, so she has trained other people in the district to use it. The thing that we've really learned about the CPS, and this is what we understood from the beginning, it's really like a tier 2, almost a tier 3 intervention. It's not a school-wide program that might look like something with PBIS where the kids, can earn stars and checks in the paws, which are all great. It's really that, we've got, hey, listen, we've got, this student here who's not responding to any of these things. We really have to spend some time with that student. So then, like a trained person would step in and then work with that student over the course of weeks and things like that.
But
So
I think in saying that and supporting, and I think this is a great piece,
Yeah.
but I think, and I agree with you, but I do want to, it's a great investment that.
Oh, we still use it, yeah.
That we, I want to see it expand within the district because I think it'll not, granted, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of involvement, but
Sure.
I think it will speak to and support the PBIS piece as well as give additional skills to staff.
Sure.
And
So I think the best way to even, to take the next step like that is I can certainly work with Alice. I know Alice is up there looking at me. I can feel Alice looking at me from behind. And we can, we'll get the list of, who's trained and who's not, and how do we want to expand that out? And it's certainly something we could do.
I just think it's a helpful tool, and I would like to see it utilized since the amount of money we did spend into it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan, as you've known,
I know
but I don't want that to die out because of the initiatives that you're working on and how we can incorporate that into, these other pieces, so, but.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. And this is the same goal. This is really a district goal that we all agree, yeah, this makes sense, and it was really just to kind of get ahead of us, always getting beat up all the time, just like defending ourselves against, things that are going on out there and stuff like that. Let's start promoting the positive, even more so. So we have just like, and again, you've seen these things already tonight, but, parent newsletters, bulletins, web pages, inviting students to share accomplishments, the Chromecast, the platforms, like, we have those televisions now in our lobbies. They're great, because I know at least at our level, we've got a couple of really invested library media specialists who really have a lot of fun with what they put up there, and everything that goes on there is about the kids and student-centered, like, and poking fun at the teachers and stuff like that, so there's all kinds of good stuff happening there. And then again, like, with WCTV, Christine's students actually talked about that tonight. I have a team that goes over on the opposite, but Thursdays, the Christines go doing the same thing. And we did shift the focus this year, that they are actually working on, and the kids love the idea of it, they're working on making like a series of like little vignettes, and that'll be on a DVD that we can use to show the incoming third graders as like an orientation thing, bullying themes,
What
and how
it's
to
like
make
to be a
friends,
student
what
at
it's
the
like to
North
be
or the
here,
West.
taking a walk around the school and video
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So, yeah, so that's that.
Yeah, and I think that, it's just the opportunity to communicate and really celebrate the positive, and, whether it's on social media or the webpage, whether it's putting out the Students of the Month, making sure they're getting celebrated. Last week, we had a gratitude day for a spirit day at our school, and I was able to share on our Facebook page some of the poems and letters and drawings that the students made for Gratitude Day to show their appreciation and thankfulness toward someone within their school community or toward their family. And it was really very positively received, and they were very touching, and teachers who received letters were so appreciative. So it's really being mindful about what we have and being positive about it and being grateful. And so we do a lot of that at the North on social media, but also at the West on the website.
Yeah, I'm the Twitterless, Dennis Shaw, don't forget that.
Twitterless.
I don't tweet, so. I'm trying. I'm trying. All right. Is that, any other questions or anything, guys? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, thanks.
Kevin, we'll invite you up, middle school.
Should we come with his team?
Steve, can I say, just for the record? I just want to say for the record, I wasn't talking to Mr. Shaw as a school committee member. It was only as a parent at drop-off. I just want to make sure that's clear, that I wasn't over there. I was before I was even on the school committee, actually.
I responded whatever the right way to respond was.
I would just say, by the way, just so everyone knows, we have breakfast coming pretty soon.
So I have a unique perspective. Last year, there was a lot of change at the middle school. I started the year as a member of our school advisory council, finished in a slightly different role. Moving forward to this year, we have a school council. We've had a few meetings already. We have myself, Mrs. Quirk, Mr. Fairclough, Mrs. Barabee, and Ms. Fisher are teachers. We have Mrs. Duggan, Mrs. Brisbois, Mrs. Rubin, Mrs. Jackson, Mrs. Feinberg, and Mrs. Galozzi, all parents sitting on the committee. Reached out to as many parents as we could, and honestly, it was a reasonable number, so I wanted to make sure I could include all the parents that were willing to be part of the committee. And as we move forward, we're going to be looking at our school improvement plan. Last year, there was a lot of change. So the focusing on this presentation is really on the plan moving forward. The school improvement plan from last year was in various stages of success. There were some aspects of the plan from last year that didn't really meet expectations, but we did see some successes moving forward. But I'd like to focus on what we're going to do moving forward from this point. Our first goal is really, again, it is an achievement gap goal, but it really focuses specifically on a very specific population of our students with special education needs, and moving the group that is in not meeting expectations up. Although 10% seems like maybe an aggressive number, when you look at that the actual number of students in the not meeting expectation range. The amount of students that would have to move is not as large as it may seem. I look at this goal as a twofold benefit for us. One, it's looking at individual students, so we look at those students' needs and we're able to use the tools we have to help individual students. But by looking at those students, it actually opens the door for us to look at the programs we have in special education and see where our strengths are there and use those strengths to help the children in need. So although the goal is really achievement gap, and I know we've had a lot of talk about that, it's really a goal that gives us the ability to look at all of our programs and see where we have the strengths. The decision to focus on math, it's a good opportunity this year. We're in the second year of our Pearson program, so we get to see, we get to see where the strengths are with Pearson, especially with the special education population. Any questions? Again, you've heard a little bit about MARC so far this evening. The middle school is in the process of rolling out the MARC program. It is our goal for our social emotional goal. We've had staff members trained to be able to train the rest of the staff on how to implement the program. We are about 50% through training our staff. We had about half the staff trained during the professional development day. We'll have the remaining staff trained in January. After the entire staff is trained, we're going to roll it out to the student body. The goal is this year, all grade levels, all the students will start the MARC program. This spring will be vital to help us as we determine the best methods moving forward with a rollout on how we're going to present it to the students. So this is a very important year as we enter the spring and we actually present it to the students and see how it's received and see where we can succeed and where we can improve on it.
Peggy, did you have a question?
I just wanted
I'm sorry.
Is there a cost to that program?
No, there's not a cost.
Then where does it come from?
The Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center is from Bridgewater State College. It is a free program, so all the resources were provided to us. There's minimal materials required. It is online videos that are presented. The teachers are provided with discussion points, and each lesson, which in middle school levels, I think there's about 27 lessons, 15 to 20 minute discussion. So it's a nice compact lesson that will really just bring conversation and allow that interaction on how to deal with a number of different problems.
Thank you, that sounds good.
It's a huge resource too. You went on the website. and
Yeah, there's a lot there.
It's
It's a DSE-sponsored research-based bullying program that, it's excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, and our final goal is really around professional practice. You've heard other schools talk about communication, and at the middle school, stepping into the interim principal job position last year, a lot we hear about is the communication at the middle school, that parents don't necessarily know what's going on. There might be a breakdown of communication between the teachers and the parents, whether it's a timely communication or misinformation. And really the goal is to eliminate that. And in a way, I've used the term before, is break down the walls at the middle school, so that people know what's going on in the middle school. I realize it's that age where the kids are kind of starting to push away and parents try to give a little freedom there, but we have to, as an administrative team, we really want to let the people know what's going on in our school, because it will build that culture that we're looking for in the community where everyone feels comfortable talking to everyone within our community. Any questions? Yes.
This doesn't directly relate to this, I don't think, but you're talking about communications and people know what's going on. Sometimes you find out things that are going on that you don't want to know. But is there an issue with the students when they're waiting the 10 or 15 minutes that the teachers aren't there? Who's watching those kids in the cafeteria and in the auditorium?
Currently, when the students enter the cafeteria, Mr. Fairclough is in the cafeteria. I have one staff member that typically volunteers, and myself, that go to the auditorium with the.
There are quite a few occasions, however, when, is there no one in there? Some occasions?
I wouldn't say quite a few, but there will probably be a time when it could happen.
This
But-
came from kids. Actually, the first time I heard of it was trick-or-treating night.
You went trick-or-treating?
I was going to. I was going to be a witch, but I didn't get too far. I stopped off here. Sorry.
Yeah, I definitely, the auditorium, there was some issues where the kids were letting themselves into the auditorium before the staff member got there. And we were trying to address that by making sure the doors remain locked until someone gets there to open up the doors.
But then where do the kids go? Because aren't there like, if the 8th grade's in the auditorium, there's like 300 kids in the 8th grade.
Yes.
And then when you look at the cafeteria, there's like 500 or 600.
Yeah, 500 to 600 in there,
We
yes.
can't have just one we need to fix, I feel strongly that we could be liable for something. We need to fix that. That we have to find a way, and if it's just to even give a small stipend to some teachers or something, I don't think we can let this go. And I don't think it's your fault at all. I think you've done everything from what I've been hearing to try to solve the problem. But the problem's not solved yet, and I just think we're playing with fire by not making sure that that's covered. And there's a lot of 6th graders who are very nervous, a lot of little kids who are nervous about being in there in that great crowd of people. And so I don't, I don't blame you at all. I think we have to, as a group, it's our responsibility, all of us, to do something about that. And I know you've been trying things, and I don't know if anyone has suggestions, and I don't know if there's a way that we could, I don't know what we could do, but I feel strongly we have to do something.
So just for clarification, you're talking about in the morning, the drop-off, when the kids arrive to the building in the morning.
Yes.
If the doors to the auditorium are locked, and that's where the 8th grade class goes, where do they go? Are they hanging out in the lobby? Are
Well,
they
yeah.
wandering the building?
When they get in, if the doors are
Yeah.
locked, they just can't get in, so they have to wait there.
They have to wait in the lobby.
Yeah, at that point, if it becomes a very large number, I have to get there to open
You
the door.
have to get there,
Yeah,
right,
we
yeah.
can't fit 300 kids in the lobby, so it quickly becomes an issue that someone has to get there and let them in, and then they're there watching them.
Okay, and is it because parents are dropping the kids off too early, or they're arriving too early for the buses before the staff is there?
Per contract, our staff starts at 7:10.
Yeah, I understand that.
The students get to the building officially at 7 o'clock. There are some students that show up before that, so there is that gap between definitely 7 o'clock and 7:10 where the administration's there, but the staff has officially not started work yet.
Okay, and what happens at the end of the day?
At the end of the day.
Yeah, while they're waiting for their buses or
Yeah,
their ride?
the
or-
majority of the students go right to their buses or to the car riders. We have
Yeah.
four runs of buses
Yeah.
that do wait in the, most days in the auditorium. We have utilized one staff member and Mr. Fairclough as well to manage those. I don't have an exact number, but it's four buses of students in there.
Oh, yeah, so about 200, yeah, what do our buses hold, 60, 50,
Well,
60 kids?
it's not 200, it's, the buses aren't full. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
With 2 adult supervisors?
right.
And what about at lunchtime?
At lunchtime,
Who's in the cafeterias at
and the
lunchtime?
administration's in the cafeteria, the SRO is typically in the cafeteria as well. Guidance will be in there as well when they're available. There are times they're pulled out.
D-
Yeah, I guess we can look
That's a
at
problem.
alternatives in the morning. It is I mean, there is that gap, and that's the issue we have, but we can see what, if anything, we can do.
Has there been damage done to the auditorium?
There have been some seats replaced, whether it can be correlated directly to that time or not. That would be hard to say, but there is, the seats are being used every morning, so after, 17 years, there is, it is wear and tear on the seats, and they have had to replace a few. I don't have that exact number for you.
So it's the town building
Yeah.
that does that? And my last thing is about the, you're building a new room that used to be the teacher's workroom, and it's going to be a special ed room?
No, that is, we created an intervention class. There was some time that there was consideration of using it for a class that would have some special education students in it. Made change the plans, and it is, there's a small group of students that have received some intervention time for a little extra math help. It's really small groups, and they're gonna use that workspace in there.
When we add on to a change of building, do we have to go through George Hooper, or we just do it?
I put a work order through, because the change was really just adding a door, because there is a nook, a small space where where the copy machines are. It wouldn't have been a valuable space if there wasn't a door there. We had a door available from I guess a previous project in the building, so it was really just having the construction workers, the town workers put a frame in.
But now the teachers can't use that as their workroom? They have to...
Well, we do have two other workrooms, one on the third floor, one on the second floor. There is the space next door that is really only utilized during lunchtime. That is another space that's available.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Linda?
I don't think I've been in this building this late in a long time. I think you have my summary that's not on the PowerPoint.
This is perfect timing.
Okay, I had a very large school advisory council last year with many parents and students. I won't go through the list just to save you some time tonight. My summary of last year, I'd like to go through each of the focus areas of the plan for this year and reflect on last year at the same time. So we'll go a little bit more quickly. A smaller group this year, but I do have some freshman parents, which I'm really excited about this year, Mrs. Toth and Mrs. Rubin. Most of the other members were members last year as well. The goal, what we started in 2015-16 was a 3-year plan, and we wrote it for 2016 through 2019, and last year when we were developing the school improvement plan, I asked Mrs. Benton if it would be okay for me to use my 3-year plan, since it was developed by the leadership team, as well as the members of the SAC, if I could use that as my school improvement plan. And she did agree to allow that. So there are really 3 goals that we want to meet over the 3 years, and they are to increase student achievement, to offer a comprehensive program, and to evaluate and measure progress of students in achieving proficiency and meeting the academic, social, and civic expectations. The strategic objectives are around curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and I think that you'll see in each of the focus areas, each of these reflected in those. So for year 1, we have an interdisciplinary steering committee that started last year with some goals, and What we did last year was meet with that committee over the year and also during the summer, during which they mapped skills that were connected in all disciplines, and they presented them to the staff in the form of a calendar. And each month focused on a specific curriculum area and different ways that all curriculum could connect to that particular curriculum area. So I think you heard Joe Wilson say that we had this is our science month. So the science department actually has invited guest speakers this month to meet with all students during our interdisciplinary block. The committee also worked in the summer, and what is very important about the whole plan for the high school is that it includes so many people. There are so many teachers that are in different aspects of this plan, and many more teachers other than just the committee itself got involved over the summer. And I think I provided you with their documentation of what they did over the summer to connect content. So the first year we developed the connection of skills, and this year we're working on the development of content. We are also looking to visit some schools that actually have interdisciplinary courses. We do have one at the high school, but we are looking into maybe implementing more, maybe not this year, but maybe for next year or the following year. We are also looking at a school-wide interdisciplinary project. We're focused this year on public speaking. So we're looking at different ways that we can help students develop skills around public speaking in all curriculum areas. Our second focus area is on inclusive practices. We have specific power elements or elements that are related directly to inclusive practices that come directly from the teacher evaluation rubric. So we presented these to the staff last year, and we, as a leadership team, whoever is evaluating teachers based on these particular elements, which include practices that are identified to be inclusive practices. And the actual evaluation documents have written statements for each teacher based on these elements. We also offered some workshops on November 7th that involved the DCAP and inclusive practices and some assessment strategies that are alternate assessments that we could start looking at. And many of the teachers, I know that I suggested that they take the Foundations of Inclusive Practice course, which the DESE offers free. And several of them took them over the summer, and I've signed a lot of professional development forms this year for teachers who are taking it this year. We, as one of the goals of the 3-year plan, our program of studies is something that we want to revise and revisit every year, but we want to enhance some of our programs. We are looking into, last year we did actually offer an AP statistics class for this year. We had planned on an honors statistics, but the preference was for AP statistics, and we have over 40 students in that course this year. So we're really glad that we actually went into the AP statistics class. We are going to try to develop some computer science workshops, hopefully enhancing that program over the next year. Our next area is around our senior internship program. We have developed new criteria for it so that more and more students can become involved. We have, through the input of teachers, we have developed even a grading policy for it. And we did increase our internships from 15 students in 2016 to 50 students in 2017, and we're hoping to get about 100 students in the program this year. We had a very nice presentation last year. We had a fair. It was during the school day, and teachers and students were able to go around and actually see the presentations of the students that participated in the program. With hopefully 100 students this year, maybe we'll have an evening event that will include not only the students, but their advisors and mentors. We have convened and reconvened scheduling committees over the last several years because we did change our schedule 3 years ago. And we continue to evaluate it. It's always something we want to look at. Right now, we survey teachers, parents, and students every year around the schedule. We have had an overwhelming preference to keep the schedule as it is. For a lot of reasons. I do think the teachers have learned to plan well for the 84 minutes, and I do think that the students they like having the 4 classes each day. I think it just gives them that extra time to process during the class time, and they also have that extra day to work on whatever it is they have been assigned for the class. So I think that they like the schedule. We'd like to add more into the schedule. We'd like to add more into our interdisciplinary block, and that's, we have added the advisory, and that's going to start as a pilot during our quarter 4 this year. This particular goal, I'm sorry to say, we did not meet. We partially met it. We have teachers evaluating students on the academic expectations, but we have not formalized the data to report it out. We do have comments for the report card. We just have not utilized them yet. It's just one of these things that the logistics of it just didn't work for us, and we just didn't have the time to get through it, but we're working on it for this year. The next goal, or the next area of our goal, is to provide more collaborative time for teachers. So we, as the administrators, will take teachers' classes during the interdisciplinary block and monitor them if they want to work together. They like to use that time. They do plan well together during other times, but during this time, it's, they use this time to look at student work, which is really very important. And we have many departments that have done this. I'd like to see more departments do it. Our science department really has taken advantage of it, so we'll continue with that. And our last focus area is around PBIS. It does look very different at the high school, and we really have related it to social emotional learning. And at this time, we are working on the 5 competencies and skills that are related to social emotional learning. We're reviewing them. At each faculty meeting, I review one of the skills and with the behaviors that are related to the skills and the classroom practices that actually help students develop these skills. And it's very noticeable that it's happening in classrooms if you look at the skill and the different activities that teachers actually do to develop those skills. So it's pretty obvious. And that's it.
All right, Linda, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right.
Steve, could I ask a question?
Of course.
Before we move on, I'm wondering if the next 2 things that we have to do on the agenda are the MCAS report and the conference talk. I'm wondering where it's so late, could we possibly put them off and end the meeting? If people don't
Peggy, I would
mind?
certainly entertain that as a motion.
I moved.
I simply facilitate, but,
Third.
All right, we got third,
Because we do have executive session, and
all
it's
right.
getting really late.
Thank you for speaking up about that, Peggy.
Thank you.
So, guys, we're going to meet in executive session, then we're going to come back for the MCAS scores. I think that's what I heard.
Well, I have a suggestion. Why don't you all go home, and I'm on TV, I can do the presentation. You can watch while you're in bed as I
Given
go
that,
through.
everyone, thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
thank you
being
so
so
much.
late. Thank
We're
you.
sorry that you
Great
stayed
job,
so.
everyone. Thank you.
Yes, it was great.
All right. So, we have a motion, a second, and a third, actually. Let's vote on that to table the rest of the agenda. Except for what?
We need to do the executive session.
Of course, the rest of the public session?
Yes.
Is that the motion?
Yeah.
All right. So, all those in favor? I believe that is unanimous. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
And we have to do executive session, which we won't return.
All right, we have the motion and a
Read
second.
it, though. Don't you have to read the whole thing?
My head is
tired?
swimming.
Are you tired?
I'm sick as a dog. The Wilmington School Committee will enter into executive session pursuant to MGL.C.30A S21, parentheses A, close parentheses, open parentheses, 3, close parentheses, semicolon, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining of litigating position of the public body. And the chair so declares. And do I read this, the last line? Well, in parentheses, the subject is Wilmington Teachers Association. The school committee will not return to public session following the executive session. I know we need to do a roll call for this, so let's start with Peggy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
MJ.
Yes.
Chair says yes.
Where are we going?
Good.